Amy, Rebecca, Sabrina, Kristen, Aaron, Oscar, Bridget, Steve, Danny, Don. Don, I'm so glad you could join us.
Morning.
Yarib, love to see you here. Thank you for joining us. And there is our speaker, Matthew Tessier, Rebecca, Dakota, Rhonda, Bill Andrews, one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. So good to see everybody today. Thank you for joining us. We're going to give everybody a couple minutes to log in. We have about 60 people who have registered for the event. Some people will be jumping in and out. So we're just going to continue the conversation in one big flow and hope that others can join us for the meat and potatoes. We all know how great it is to be with one another. It's a very different experience to participate in the conversation versus watching it online. So we try and make this as inclusive and accessible as possible, making sure that everybody has access to this information and the discussions because they're always so rich. So as people are filtering in, please introduce yourself in the chat. Many of us know each other, some of us do not. I did look at the registration list prior and see that there are quite a few newbies. So if you're a new person joining this discussion, you've never joined us before, as you're introducing yourself in the chat, please let us know. And some of our veterans, those of you who've either been with us for one leadership roundtable or 10 leadership roundtables, keep an eye on those newbies, and they have questions or encourage them to participate and jump in and feel welcome. My name is Tiffany Baca. For those of you who don't know or who are new to joining us, I am the Executive Director of the Water Energy Education Alliance, and I'm also the Public Affairs Manager for the Municipal Water District of Orange County, which is who leads this great initiative that was formed in 2018 by Bill Andrews, and that's why Bill is one of my favorite people. We're going to talk a little bit about leadership today and how everybody can be a leader, and we want you to consider yourselves that. And I'll tell you kind of some of the conversations I've been having recently, but 4 years ago when MODOC assumed leadership of WEEA, I'm still a public affairs manager of MODOC, but I didn't even know what a CTE was. It can be a long journey, but if you're committed to leadership and you're committed to making things better, and this is a great place to do that, it's very inspiring work, it's very fulfilling work, then you are a leader in this space, regardless of your title. So I have my email address here. I have my LinkedIn here. Please connect with me. If you have questions, please reach out to me. I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Throughout this presentation, I'm trying something a little bit new, and I've included some statistics so that we can start sharing information that we learn here with other people. And sometimes we recognize that statistics are very powerful, and that's an easy way to share. We're doing something a little new today that we haven't done in previous years, and that is talk about early career exploration. We have talked over the years about high school, post-secondary, but we haven't really, we've had little discussions about what about middle school? Our guest speaker today, we're going to have a conversation about how early we can start, when it's most effective, and how we can influence those decisions early on, because young people don't know what they don't know, and we're forming our opinions about who we want to be and where we want to work very early on. And we're going to share that with you today. So looking at this statistic here, a study published in the Journal of Career Development found that 65% of students in 5th grade have already started forming specific career aspirations. Can that change? Absolutely, depending on the influences in our life, depending on who comes in and out, what we can imagine ourselves to be and who helps us imagine that. But 65% in grade 5. Can we start earlier, and can we start looking at how we're going to fill some of our career gaps early? So before moving on, as always, giving a huge shout out to our 2024-25 WEEA sponsors, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, and I sincerely hope Walter was able to make it today, Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, Eastern Municipal Water District, our Friends at Tomorrow's Talent, Water Replenishment District, Western Municipal Water District, and I am thrilled to announce that we have a brand new sponsor this fiscal year. We've just gotten started. So a big shout out to Molten Miguel Water District, who's right here in Orange County. I look forward to continuing a great partnership with you to advance workforce in Orange County and beyond. That partnership has already produced some positive things for this group, including an opportunity to speak on a panel at the next Aqua conference. So if you're attending the next Aqua conference, I encourage you to come and hear the panel on workforce development. And if your leadership is attending the Aqua conference, please invite them to attend, because as I've mentioned previously, one of my goals this past year is going to continue to encourage leadership to place value in workforce development. And what I mean by that is we need to make an investment. We are at a critical time where we have people who are leaving. We're not filling positions. We cannot continue to operate the way that we have in past years, because we've never been in this particular time before, where we're looking at this is 2024 marks peak 65, meaning that almost 12,000 people a day across the United States are retiring. What does that look like for us? We have 5 generations now, from internships to very senior executive teams, 5 generations that are working together now, all influenced by different things, all motivated by different things. And we really need some time and committed time to focus on that. So that has been a goal of mine, and I'm starting to see some real change and movement there. So I continue to be excited to share more of that with you as this year goes along. So again, thank you to our sponsors. CEEF is an in-kind sponsor. California Community College is an in-kind sponsor. I know I can tap them when I get stuck or when our membership gets stuck to help us answer questions from the education perspective. All right. Boop. And I'm hoping that this shrinks up. So our guidelines, closed captioning for those who need it, it's there for you. We want to, again, make sure that if you have any challenges consuming the information that we're providing today or participating in discussions, you have the tools that you need to be successful. So if anything happens, I also have my very talented public affairs team who always comes and joins to help facilitate these meetings. Nate Shepard, Jasmine Orozco, Sarah Wilson, Katie Vincent. They will be helping me throughout this presentation, but if you get stuck or you have any questions, please reach out to one of them and they'll be able to help you. So in the Zoom application, as usual, please make sure your screen name is correct and include your organization. I haven't done that, so I'm going to do that in a minute. That way we know who is in the room. We ask that everyone remain muted unless you're presenting or asking a question, and we're reserving the chat for comments. And this is just to help narrow down distractions. However, we will never host these meetings as a webinar for those that are new, ever, because we want this to be an inclusive conversation. We want you to be able to bounce ideas off of each other as we go through this agenda. And we want you to start building networks of support. So reserve the chat for comments, but please feel free to chat and raise your hand if you have a question using the Zoom application. Our agenda, just very simply, welcome and introductions at 9. Few minutes, we'll do good news and announcements, so we encourage you to share. We have an incredible presentation from Dr. Matthew Tessier, and I learned how to say his last name last night. It is French, so you can say Tessier. Even though I've known Matt for quite some time now, we've been working on a lot of different things and sharing ideas back and forth. I finally just asked, how do you pronounce your last name? So it's French. You can be fancy when you address him. Tessier is his last name. And then we're going to do Q&A at 10:15. We're going to take a 10-minute break. We're going to see who's with us at the end of the discussion. We've realized that the 3 hours is a big time commitment, although it goes very quickly. So we'll either break out into facilitated breakout rooms, or we're going to have a general all-together discussion, and we'll determine that at the end. That'll also determine whether we have regional share-outs. And then, of course, we have the closing information, things that you need to know, and then acknowledgements. Let's see if I can't pull this down. I can't. Okay. I do, for those new in the room, but for those who aren't, want to redirect our attention and make sure that we're paying attention to the focus areas of this work. We were very fortunate to have the Centers of Excellence work with us and launch a report last year in 2023, a statewide report on 8 mission critical occupations and where they might recommend that we improve. We took those recommendations and we created our very own acronym because, you know, we love our acronyms, but it also has really allowed us over the last year and a half to focus our work and to be very clear about how we can make an effort, how we can move forward. If you're doing work that advances diversity, identifying those diversity and equity gaps, bridging, fostering relationships that include developing workforce strategies that are inclusive and diverse, increasing awareness. How are we attracting more students and job applicants, and developing partnerships, nurturing partnerships that you have, identifying those required skills. And when I say required skills, we have a tendency to, again, lean on old ways of doing things or old information, particularly as we've been climbing out of COVID and realizing that that massive weight of you do all the things, it'll get better, we're still doing all the things. And so paying attention to those required skills instead of old information to help students and our current employees prepare for industry occupations and advancement, because we're not looking at filling just one generation of roles. We aren't just looking at those interns coming through, but we're looking at decades of advancement. How are we training our next generations to fill the entry-level gaps? And how are we advancing our current employee talent pool to make sure they can assume our jobs? And I threw this slide in here at the last minute this morning, actually. And I did so for a couple of reasons. After talking to our speaker last night and realizing kind of what we hope for this group. Also, I've been attending a few meetings where leadership has become an issue. I'm in a class right now at Cal State Fullerton about leadership. And when my board and other boards ask me, who is the leadership roundtable? I want us to be very clear about who's able to lead, because when we look at this group and we look at this registration list, I have found throughout these conversations and throughout my class, many people don't assume leadership responsibility. They are afraid that their title doesn't entitle them to leadership. They are worried that they're overstepping their boundaries and that they don't have anything to contribute. And that's absolutely not true. What I'm so proud of with this particular group, this leadership roundtable, and how we've grown from 20 organizations to more than 200 statewide over the last 4 years. We are an open door organization that invites everyone to participate in the conversation. When you look at, well, who are the main collaborators? Is it just educators? Is it just industry professionals? Is it hiring managers, HR professionals, communicators? Who are we speaking to? I'm very pleased to look at our attendance list and see that it's a very rich mix of everybody. And why is this important? When we talk about diversity and we talk about, growing further than we had imagined, it really takes every perspective. Who is influenced by this? Who is affected by this work? who can contribute their unique skills, their unique expertise and knowledge to advance whatever it is that we intend to do. So if you ever question whether or not you're a leader, I'm telling you that you are. And so I wanted to kind of throw some ideas out here as we continue our conversation. Leadership is a function of knowing who you are. Leadership means having a vision that is very thoughtful and intentional. And I encourage you to communicate that with other people so that they recognize you as a leader. Because you can be, and I've had this discussion in class recently, you can be an intern and you can lead others. You can not have the title, but be responsible for very important things. And I'm thinking specifically of some of our skilled trades people. If they don't do their jobs well, if they don't collaborate and communicate, these are mission critical jobs, and we are in a lot of trouble if they don't consider themselves leaders. So how can we take action? How can we build trust among our colleagues and partners so that we can realize what's possible? Because what is possible is far beyond the box that you're living in today. Mobilizing others, pulling people together, having the confidence. Guess what? We're all afraid. You know, when we're thinking about, oh my goodness, I'm going to present at this conference, or I'm going to, I have a board meeting. Don't let fear stop you from stepping out of this box and realizing your potential and the potential of your partners around you. Leadership pulls people together, including diversity. Leadership drops egos at the door and builds these partnerships that thrive on respect, honesty, shared responsibility, and shared collaboration. So consider yourself in that space. And I have this icebreaker, but I have another one following. And again, I threw this together this morning, but I think it's a really important conversation. And I'd like everybody who's attending today to drop your answer in the chat. Think of yourself and think of yourself in this leadership role. I've added a few traits here as a sample. What traits or trait do you have that can contribute to leadership and can contribute to advancing the work that we're doing together here in this space? So if you can you can use one of these that I've used as a sample, or you can come up with your own. What leadership trait do you have that contributes to our work together and can help us advance? I'll throw mine out first. Nobody has ever said I don't go in 115%, 125, 150%. I'm tenacious, and that is a good thing because I don't let opportunities die. If I really feel like there's a great chance for a great opportunity, a great chance for success, I will not stop until others either realize that and contribute, or they see, hey, we need to have a conversation because I think, maybe there's another way to approach this. So I love the leaders in this chat. Tenacity, Rebecca, you and me both. Innovation, Dr. Tessier, 100%. Consensus builder, Benita, I love it. And I know that about you. Collaboration, relationship building, vision. You can't do anything without vision, folks. Good listener. Thank you, Jasmine, for that. Absolutely. Accountability, strategic thinker, connector, listener, learner, humility, 100%. Sarah Wilson, collaboration, pot stirrer, Don Jones. You know what? I know that about you too. And one of the things that I greatly admire about you, because you are forcing people outside of that box. So 100%. Active listener, innovative, authenticity is so important, because when you're true to yourself, you can be true to your work and other people see that. They know whether you're being authentic or not, and that it can be a deal breaker. Collaboration, authenticity. I love these authentic people. Commitment, generosity, passionate. Benita is also very passionate and committed. Yes, collaboration, commitment, resilience. I love this. I'm glad I added this slide. I really hope that everyone in the room can see themselves in these leadership roles. And as we work together, speak up, speak out, step up. We're here, and you have a whole group of people behind you and in front of you to help pull you up, push you forward, surround themselves, surround you with what they have to offer. So I'm really glad I did that icebreaker at the last minute. For those of you that are new, a long time ago we did this, but I think this is super, super important to the conversation that we have had. Thinking back to your childhood, what was your earliest career aspiration? And I'll tell you what mine is and what mine was in just a minute. And it's vastly different from the person I've become. So your earliest career aspiration and who or what influenced your decision at the time. Was it your family? Was it your surroundings? Maybe, my grandmother was a checker at Safeway, and I knew that she provided for her family in that way. You know, what was your earliest career aspiration, and who or what influenced your decision? And I'll share mine with you now. Mine, I wanted to be a mailman. I really did want to be a mailman, and I wanted to be a mailman. Grew up in Colorado, and my whole family, most of which were women, were in construction. And in the wintertime, there was no work. Like, you just worked to the bone in the summertime and the wintertime. But the mailman always had a job. The mailman would show up every day. There was never, a question about whether or not he was getting a paycheck or whether he was going to go to work that day. He also got to be outside, and that has become a huge part of who I am. So these type of things, the things that we see around us, truly inspire who we think we're going to be. And a lot of that comes from our parents. And, going further, for those who know me, you can tune me out because you know this also. But even middle school, high school, I only knew what was around me. I had zero idea that this could be my job. I thought I could go in construction like most of my family. I could go in the military because I grew up in Colorado Springs for the most part, and we have 2 military bases, and we're military proud. Or I thought I could be a nurse, because if you could get out of construction and be a nurse, you have made it. But I had zero idea I could do this. And career opportunities, we just didn't really talk about that in school unless it was be a doctor, be a scientist, be a this. So let's see, what do people want to be? A marine biologist, family. A teacher, yep, family. A journalist and talk show host, check you out. An ecologist, my dad. Attorney, the TV show Perry Mason, that's pretty great. Journalist, second grade teacher, scientist, outdoor field trips, camp director, outdoor science school, an architect, a book, right? A pilot, a neighbor, a mailman. I deliver good news. They're so sweet, Benita. Thank you. A dermatologist, my sister, lifeguard, the beach, teacher. And I think what's really important about this, why I really wanted to have this discussion, right, is we're talking about, why are you developing materials in multiple languages, right? And we've been asked that before. We develop materials in multiple languages because our earliest influence is at home. And if we want this to be a full family discussion, and we want help showing that these careers are true opportunities, we need this to be an inclusive, family-centered discussion where it's possible. Or if you are inspired by a teacher, those materials come to you from school. And we had quite a few people say, my teacher, my family, my sister. Let's start bringing in these people who can help us influence at a young age and show that these jobs that we have in water and energy and education are valuable, important, and they're life-changing. So thank you, everyone, for participating in that exercise. Good news and announcements. We've got a few. I'm going to start with just something super simple. We do have a WEEA LinkedIn now. I held off as long as I could because truly this job is other duties as assigned, even though it has consumed a big portion of my life because I'm very passionate about it. And we hope to see even more investment, and that's what we're working for. But I have started a WEEA LinkedIn page. So many people were trying to tag us, and it just didn't happen because I tried to not. But there's a lot of great information that we can start sharing. So Katie's going to drop that in the chat if she hasn't already done so. Next up, let me go to Jasmine for OC Project WET.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. This is actually my first WEEA meeting. I'm so happy to be a part of this. We actually have lots of collaborators for the Project WET workshop here in this meeting, which is the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, also the Department of Water Resources, and we have Inside the Outdoors, who is going to help facilitate some activities, and Project WET, or the Water Education Foundation. So that will be on Saturday, November 2nd. It's from 8 to 4 p.m. and it's an opportunity for teachers to become certified in water education through Project WET curriculum. So if we still have 5 spots available, if you'd like, we would love to have you, and it will be here at our headquarters at MODOC. So here in Fountain Valley, please join us.
Great, thank you, Jasmine. Next up, Bill Andrews, you want to talk about the CEEF Teacher Administrator Survey?
Yes, that would be great. Just want to let everyone know. In fact, I talked with Kathy Schultz last week at Department of Water Resources, and she is going to help us send out our survey out to all the water agencies in the Water Education Committee. I think she said there was over, what, 300 or 400 agencies in that group. And we're going out to all our sponsors too. And it's a K-12 professional learning survey. So we're sending it to teachers and their administrators, either at the school level, district level, or the county office level. And we're trying to get their feedback about, what's going on for you when it comes to professional learning opportunities. When do you want to receive that opportunity, like the spring, the summer, the fall, that kind of thing? What are the barriers? What are the topics that you want? So there's like about 29 or 30 items in the survey, and so it takes a good 15 minutes, sometimes even more, for people to write out their answers. But we are offering an incentive. I spoke to you about this yesterday. There's going to be a drawing for a $250 gift card. We'll do 4 drawings each week for 4 weeks. So we're shelling out like $4,000 to educators to say thank you for committing your time to this survey, and the information is going to be shared back to all the sponsors and collaborators on this survey, so that everybody benefits by knowing what teachers need, what they want, and what they're struggling with at the school site. Thanks, Tiff.
Yeah, absolutely. We have sent the survey already, Jasmine, 180, is that right? 180 teachers in Orange County. So go ahead.
195.
195. So yeah, 15 more.
Awesome.
So we've sent out that survey. I just want to encourage you all to send that survey out to your networks. One of the things that I've recognized is probably one of the most important things we can do is let's gather information and gather accurate information so we can make informed decisions, and we can encourage others to join us because we have accurate information. Why do, to speak to Bill's CEEF teacher training, why do it if you're not providing the teachers what they need, right? And these guys are committed to ensuring that their teacher training is valuable, and teachers are leaving empowered and ready to lead.
And we've hired a person as a doctorate in education to analyze all those responses, to put them into bar graphs, pie charts, so that the information is going to be very user-friendly back out to the field to inform leadership within your own organizations and agencies to say, this is the percentage of teachers that are interested in this specific topic, etc. So we're really encouraging everybody to jump on board on this, and we hope that we can get your support on it. We sent out 2 covered letters, and each cover letter has an embedded URL linked to the survey, so it's extremely user friendly.
Awesome. Thank you, Bill.
Betcha.
The last good news or announcement that I have is that the AWWA scholarship program applications are now open. So we're going to drop the flyer in the chat, a link to the flyer in the chat. I've shared that on our LinkedIn page. My understanding is there are 28 scholarships and they range, they're around $5,000 a piece. Please, if you know a student who could benefit from applying, please encourage them to do so and share the flyer. All right, opening it up to anybody else who has something good to share or an announcement. Anybody have anything in your world that you'd like to share with the rest of us? Career opportunities, career fairs. Nirmala.
Hello, and thank you last month to Tiffany and WEEA for sponsoring 5 National Society of Black Engineers at the Orange County Water Summit. They had a great experience, and I'm glad you're on LinkedIn now because I had made a post afterwards, and they were just commenting, and it's still living, and people are still seeing it and commenting. So it was a great opportunity for them to see what the water industry has to offer with the variety of topics covered. So thank you so much, Tiffany. And I'm hoping that, we can go get more experience, more
Opportunities, yeah.
opportunities. Thank you, like this.
Yes.
So we can take more students. So just let us know. Because
Yes.
through the National Society of Black Engineers, we're connected with 12 college campuses around here. So if you're willing to allow 3 students or something to come, just let us know. We can get in contact with them and prep them for your event. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I do have to give Nirmala a shout out and Alec Mackey. This is what we're talking about, opening doors, right? This is something we had not done before, just simply because this is our box and, we're operating in the box like I had talked about previously. We hosted an Orange County Water Summit. We host it every year. This is our 16th year. And Nirmala reached out and said, hey, is there an opportunity for student sponsorship? And I thought, oh my God, why have we not done this before? Of course, yes, let me see where we can sponsor some students. We sponsored these students. We actually ended up sponsoring a total of 12. Tomorrow's Talent also helped with this effort. So I'm gonna give a shout out to Marianne and Zach and Tomorrow's Talent, Nirmala, Adrian Hightower, Alec Mackey, because what we did is open the door. These guys found the students, prepped the students. I was so proud, and I could look at my face, my heart is just full because these students came ready. They had the door open to 300 potential employers, and they used that opportunity to ask questions, to share resume, to share stories, and several of them are now connected to employers. Why is that important? Because why are we talking to ourselves all the time? What about the next generation? Some of these students were PhD candidates. We're looking at having more than 200 occupations that will be left empty in the next 10 years unless we prepare ourselves for the future. Nirmala, you are an inspiration. You reminded me, right? Because we all are kind of challenged with new generations in and out and how we communicate. And you reminded me that tough love is okay. Tough love is okay. It's not always about, well, how can we help? But how can you get them ready to put their best foot forward? And you did that. And they did. And I'm so proud of them. So yes, if you have conferences, if you have meetings, if you can open the door, there are people in this collaborative that will prepare students for that opportunity. So please consider that. And yes, reach out to Nirmala if you have those opportunities because she's a hustler. She will get it done. Thank you for sharing that, Nirmala. Anyone else have a good news or opportunity that they'd like to share before we move on? Great.
Yeah, Tiffany, I have one.
Yes.
The AWWA Kalamata section has hosted or has sponsored for probably at least 15 years the Water Education Symposium or Seminar at Santiago Canyon College. This year they're expanding that. We're going to be offering one at Cuyamaca College. We will be hosting one for this extreme Southern California area. And interestingly enough, we have added for the first time a high school student track to that event.
Wow.
So we're working with Dr. Tessier and some of our local school districts to have a track for about 60 high school students to participate in that day.
Wow. That is huge.
And we hope that will set an example so that then the following year in August when it's hosted again at Santiago Canyon, which is a bigger event, that they'll also add a student track.
I love that. And Dawn, is there a website or a flyer, some place where people can learn more, sign up?
It's at the AWW. They're the sponsoring agency. They're doing all the stuff. We're just providing the site and some support services.
All right, perfect. One of our team will take a look and see if we can't get a link to share out with everybody at the end. Thank you for that. That's awesome. Opening doors, allowing students to see themselves where they haven't previously seen themselves. I love that. Thank you for that. Jennifer.
Howdy, howdy. So Mary Ann is at CCCAOE today, so I wanted to make sure I hopped in and let everybody know. We have Pathfinder Day, which is an event where we do basically different school districts will come together and they do a short-term internship. So about a half a day where they go to different employers and they do a hands-on activity. So we help pay for lunch and the school helps to pay for transportation. Our next Pathfinder Day is Thursday, February 27th. And I know Mary Ann's looking to have some more employers kind of help out and see if they would be able to allow small groups. I mean, you can have, as many as you can, with capacity, limitations, but even as small as 2 people, 2 students that could come and just kind of learn some different aspects of different trades, whether that be marketing and design or IT or, water operations. So we definitely have multitude of different pathways. We have this next one in February. It's going to be with Riverside Unified and Fontana Unified and the city of Fontana as well, all helping to bring together multiple students from different pathways.
I love that.
And then
I have flyer or something. Yeah, if you have a flyer, if you have a link, and if you have contact information, because all of this, if we haven't said it yet, you're going to get the recording, you're going to get the presentations, you're going to get the chat, you're going to get anything that we talked about. And we do that for a couple of reasons, not just for the participants in the room to help bolster what everyone has talked about or learned today, because it gets pretty exciting at the end. You're like, what was that whirlwind? But also for the people who couldn't join us. So thank you for that. Anyone else with good news or announcements? Okay. Here we go. We're running a little behind, but it's not that big a deal because we do have our breakout discussions. We do have a share out and we adjust accordingly. Friends, I am so pleased to welcome Dr. Matthew Tessier to our WEEA Leadership Roundtable meeting. We got connected actually through a different path. It wasn't even through WEEA. We had built a conservation garden, and the conservation garden started at 1,000 square feet, and it's in the city of Westminster. It grew through partnerships, donations, and more to a 5,000 square foot conservation garden that serves as a model for Orange County residents and businesses to come and visit, see where there are opportunities. It's an opportunity for students to learn different techniques, and then we provide resources through various signage throughout the parks. And and we connected because he has a space at Linda Vista Innovation Center that he's trying to redesign. However, we got in probably 3 or 4 conversations following that because he mentioned in the chat he's an innovator. That's absolutely true. And I'm so thrilled for him to be here today because he's energizing, right? That innovation, that vision, that thought process is energizing. So I'm really glad that everybody could be here to share this with us. We're dropping his bio in the chat. I'm going to touch on a few things in his bio. Serving educational community for the past 27 years. So he has a little bit of experience there. He began at Fester Edison Charter School in Chula Vista, teaching 2nd, 3rd, and 5th grades. He worked as a national mathematics trainer for Edison schools, leading math instruction for 20 schools in 3 states, California, Texas, and Georgia. He was a principal in Chula Vista, where he earned a California Distinguished School Recognition, Director of Technology and Student Assessment in the National School District, returning then to Chula Vista as the Executive Director of Technology and Instruction. He is now the Assistant Superintendent of Innovation and Instruction with the San Diego County Office of Education. And he's got some really interesting insights to share with us through his work at Linda Vista Innovation Center. So Dr. Tessier, please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tiffany. And I just wanted to, there was the announcements and good news. I just want to acknowledge, I love that picture of that young lady whose eyes were lighting up when she saw that chemical reaction with the science. So just acknowledging that, and that's really how I want to start this presentation, to share with you all my deep commitment and passion to children and their success. And I hope that today, what I intend to accomplish is share with you what we are doing at the Linda Vista Innovation Center. Really ask for your support, which can look many, many different ways that you'll see at the very end of the presentation. And then also just share with you some of the things that we do have in the pipeline. As you well know, during a presentation, there's very specific things you want to communicate based on the conversation I'm hearing today. So Tiffany, I do want to add maybe 1 or 2 things that we didn't talk about yesterday, just because I think it'll be very relevant to the conversation. One of them being, I noticed in every single slide you saw percentages, whether it was from the Gallup poll or whether it was from survey of belongingness or happiness with folks in their career. And that's really what drives my passion. Is this is in no way an indictment of the education system. However, I would argue that when we talk about career development in high school, it's too late, in my opinion. And I don't say that like, oh, it's too late, kids can't do that. That's not what I'm arguing. What I am arguing is it needs to start much, much earlier, because what we know is that gender and racial stereotypes, kids start buying into those as young as 3 years old. And if we're looking at poverty, unfortunately, a majority of our children in this county, San Diego County, are experiencing poverty, and kids will emulate what they see their mom, their dad, their aunt, their uncle, whoever they're residing with. A lot of times they will aspire to what they see their parents or their guardians doing. And if the guardians or the parents are experiencing poverty, the access that kids have to high-paying jobs that are consistent, that have wages and benefits, where kids can actually stay in really high rent or high housing areas, is significantly limited unless we do our job and do it well. So I'd love to share the presentation with you, and looking forward to the Q&A afterwards. I hope that I can meet the needs. I'm going to share my screen. So again, thank you so very much for attending this. I saw in the chat, we've got folks from Utah. We've got folks from around California. We have folks who are from many different industries. And I'm really, really excited about that, because innovation doesn't happen in a vacuum. Innovation happens when we include people from different industries, from different income levels, from different genders, different ethnicities. That's when innovation and beauty does happen, because everybody's life story and everybody's life perspective is very different. And as you heard earlier, if we can drop the ego and we can be persistent and we can be consistent, that's when innovation happens. So I'm going to be sharing with you about the Linda Vista Innovation Center in San Diego County. So what does the San Diego County Office of Education believe? We believe that each child is born with inherent worth and dignity, and equitable access and opportunity are essential to a just, educated society. And I think you're all probably right in line with what I'm saying. And I want to point out that equitable access and opportunity. Again, going back to when people are experiencing poverty or people are very limited in what they're seeing in their reality, it shouldn't be a surprise that we don't have a lot of diversity in certain aspects of our society when it comes to the economy. And that really drives a lot of the work that I do, is I want to make sure we have equitable access and opportunity. I always think to myself, where is the next Lionel Messi in soccer? And we don't know because that child may not have the financial resources to access a travel club team. Where is the next Einstein? And we don't know because those children don't have access to opportunity in the sciences. So that's really important to point that out, because that's what we deeply believe in the County Office of Education. So as I shared with you, here's our challenge. Unfortunately, out of the 500,000 students in San Diego County, over 51%, that number is now 52%, are experiencing poverty. And we define that as children who qualify for free or reduced price meals. And you can see in San Diego, and if you live in California, you're probably not immune to this. San Diego is definitely an extreme acute case, but a family of 4 makes less than $55,000 annually to qualify for reduced price meals, or less than $39,000 for free meals. 52% of our children are in that category. So think about how important it is that we are not only exposing kids to high paying, high benefit jobs, but also this is a social justice issue. We cannot continue going down this path where over 50% of our children are experiencing poverty. That's just not right. So what do we do at the County Office of Education? We have a North Star, and our North Star is reducing that number, poverty, to 35% by 2030. Now that might sound like a lofty goal, but we do believe 15%, up to 15, 17%, that's a lot of students when you talk about 500,000. And then once we reach that goal, we'll continue going. So we do that through transformational teaching and learning in the community school model, and I'll talk more about that in the subsequent slides. But I want to point this one piece out to you where it says curb cut, the culture. And what is curb cut culture? What we do at the county office, and specifically at the Linda Vista Innovation Center, is we purposefully go to communities that are experiencing poverty. And we design for kids who have been othered, who have been ignored, and who don't have access to these opportunities, because we feel when the most othered and the most ignored communities and children are provided these opportunities, it benefits everybody. And that's what the curb cut culture is. Really long story, but I'll shorten it up significantly. A group of activists in Berkeley, before the Americans with Disabilities Act, would go around to curbs, and they would put little pieces of concrete or pour concrete so that people in a wheelchair could actually get up these curbs. Well, what they found was not only people who were in wheelchairs benefited from this curb cut, where the wheelchair could go up with ease over a curb, but also people walking their children in strollers, delivery workers. So again, when we really intentionally design for the most othered and the most ignored in society, everybody benefits. That's the curb cut culture. So our mission really is inspiring and leading innovation in education. And I feel really good about this. I don't want anybody ever to point the finger at me and say, boy, that guy's fantastic, and he's the reason why, you know, schools did well and kids are doing well. I'm one part of a puzzle, and I feel very honored to lead. But really, when we do this work together, that's when innovation happens. And it's not hard. If we all can work for the betterment of children, we put ego aside, we learn from each other, we listen, we collaborate, this mission will and can happen. So just a little bit about the Linda Vista community before I get into it. Linda Vista is one of the most diverse communities in the city of San Diego. There's about 27,000 residents, many different distinct cultures, and there's 38 languages that are spoken. The majority of our community is Hispanic Latino. We've got 23% Asian American. Specifically, we have a lot of Vietnamese folks who live in the Linda Vista community. As you can see, 30% white, 6% African American, and it's a relatively young community. About 56% of our residents are under age 35. What people don't know, because of its proximity to the University of San Diego, it's one of the 6 most socioeconomically distressed blocks in San Diego. A lot of Section 8 housing, a lot of people experiencing poverty within the community. I grew up by Hoover High School down in San Diego, and I always thought that all the rich people lived in Linda Vista, but that's not really true. So here is the Linda Vista Innovation Center. Let's get right into it and really the passion and why we're here today. This is a beautiful 3-story building. There's 17 classrooms. It's a pretty massive space. It used to be a charter school. So just put in your mind's eye a 3-story building that used to be able to service 400 to 500 students. So think of a school. And it is home to the Bayside Community Center. This is a community center that we partner with to do food distribution every week for our community who are experiencing food insecurities. And so this is where the Innovation Division and the Classroom of the Future Foundation are held. So what do we do at the Linda Vista Innovation Center? We're really into interactive educational experiences that are hands-on. It's not lecture-based. It's not sit and get. It's learning by doing. And I think that's really, really important, because when we talk about the current state of education, some of you may know this because you're in the education space. Some of you may not know it, but education is really going through a very difficult time right now. Post-pandemic, we have seen pretty significant decreases in enrollment. We've seen significant decreases in engagement as defined by student attendance. We have many, many, many schools throughout the state, more than I would like to share, who are experiencing what we call chronic absenteeism issues, where students are just not showing up to school. So this is the time really to think differently on how we innovate the educational experience and have kids learn by doing and connect it to careers, because the data suggests kids are getting turned off by school. And I think a lot of that also has to do with technology. Facts that used to be given by the teacher no longer need to be done because everybody has a phone. Everybody's got internet connectivity. So kids are able to very easily find facts. Now we need to help them think differently, critically think, collaborate, communicate, and be the next generation of entrepreneurs and people who are going to take these jobs and innovate them. So what is our goal? Really to effectively promote and facilitate hands-on career experiences. We like to empower students with practical skills and the real world insights. That's really what comes from you as education partners. You may not be quote unquote in education, but your perspective and your lived experience is really, really important, because what we see in education is a lot of people get into their how could I say, their lane, and they blink and 10 years has passed. Well, we have to stop blinking, look at the off-ramps, and start collaborating with each other so that we can understand the realities of private industry, of public works, to be able to provide those experiences for our kids. We can't do it alone. So I want to focus on this again, the diversity, the partnerships, the skills, and the awareness. And you see here one of our teachers. This might be very familiar to you, the Colorado River Basin. This is in our water experience, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I really want to focus on that diversity piece. You know, there's a lot of folks who have corporate social responsibility goals right now, and they talk about diversity and diversifying the workforce. And I always kind of scratch my head when people are surprised. For example, let's say that people are looking for more African-American men to be in the water industry. And they're saying, well, you know, we really can't find a lot of African-American men in the water industry. Well, we haven't really done a good job, in my opinion, in education to expose kids at a very early age to want those jobs. So if we only show a certain segment of the population different jobs, of course, you're not going to have the diversity that you want in industry. You're not going to have the diversity you want in education. So it's really important that we recognize that, because again, as the data suggests, kids are starting to say, I can't do that job because that's not a boy job. I can't do that job because that's not a girl job. They start doing that much, much earlier than high school. And then partnerships, that's where we come together. So as you listen to what we're doing, please think about how we can continue to partner to innovate and do great things for kids. So what do we do in the Linda Vista Innovation Center? Another thing that's really important to point out is we focus on the San Diego Workforce Partnership priority sectors. There's 7 sectors. These are based on data. And basically what San Diego Workforce Partnership and we do is these 7 economic sectors are sectors that are pandemic proof. And boy, did we learn that. So if there's a pandemic, God forbid, these jobs aren't going away. These are recession proof. If we're experiencing a recession, which some argue maybe we are now, these jobs are not going to go away. And the educational experience connected to industry and economy is super, super critical because we don't want to educate kids and give them opportunity to economic sectors that are not going to exist when they get out into the workforce. So we really focus in on these economic sectors. And as an asterisk to what I just shared with you, we have a lot of growth to go. We currently have the energy, construction, and utilities focused experience, which I'll talk more about. We have a healthcare optometry experience, and we have an information and communication technologies and digital media experience for elementary kids. Those experiences and an advanced manufacturing experience also exist for students in the middle and high school grades. So that's really important to point that out. So another thing I'd like to share with you, what we do before students come to the Linda Vista Innovation Center is they take a RIASEC assessment. Some of you may have heard of this before. It's Dr. John Holland from the 1950s, 1960s, where his research states, if you know who you are, you know your strengths, you know your interests, you know your values, you are going to be much more productive at work, which leads to a much happier employee. And I want to point this out also because we talked about this, earlier in your leadership style, really knowing who you are and how you can influence organization and influence change. It's equally as important for students. So when students come into the Linda Vista Innovation Center, they know right away, oh, I'm realistic, I'm artistic, and I'm social. And I have value and I have worth, and I can use those skills in different industry. And that'll make a lot of sense in the subsequent slides when I talk about the careers we're exposing kids to. But I also want to point out how critical it is for children to feel valued and to feel capable. And so we all know, right? Reading can be tough. Math can be tough. Different content areas can be very difficult. And I always wonder, because I was one of those kids, from my kindergarten experience to 3rd grade, I was in 3 different schools, having been removed, if you will, by 2 different schools by the 3rd grade, because I was not the type of kid who could sit down quietly and take notes and just listen. So imagine what that told me. I didn't have value. I didn't have worth. And you know what? I'll just be a bad boy and then I'll be in the next school and we'll move on. Many kids go through that on a daily basis. Students are told, you're not good at this, you're not good at this, you're not good at this, you're not good at this. We flip that on its head and say, you are good at this, you're realistic, you're artistic, and you're social. And yeah, maybe right now you're struggling here, but these strengths, what gifts, what beauty, let's put you where you can be successful and where you can use those skills to be successful. So we talk about your future in 4D. So elementary lab experiences, grades 4, 5, and 6. We also have been seeing 3rd graders this year. I point that out because that's new. National School District is actually sending all of their 3rd graders to our building. And National City, if you're not familiar with National City, it is the most economically depressed zip code in San Diego County. So again, the curb cut culture and really intentionally focusing on children who are experiencing poverty. So we are seeing 3rd graders in our elementary experiences this year for water. So we have the Energy, Construction, and Utilities Lab. This is really why we're here today. We know that energy, construction, utilities, and utilities includes water. So when kids get into these really exciting world of critical thinking and problem solving, through energy, through water resource management, through construction, they actually have a blast. And you'll see in the picture here, you've got the RIASEC codes. You'll also see students working on a project. So just to share with you, many of the things we do in this energy construction utilities lab is we focus on wind energy, we focus on solar energy, and we focus on water energy and the transportation of water and figuring out different water type of problems. Like, how is it that you would create a new filtration system? Like, how is it that you would reduce water consumption through a xeriscape type of environment at a home? Again, building in that artistic piece for kids where they may be in school going through an artistic experience once every month for 30 minutes. We're telling them, hey, you're artistic. There's value to that skill, and you can put that skill to work in the water industry. So that's something I want to point out to you. So as I shared with you, the strengths and interests, and this is really important. On this slide, you'll see here, the San Diego Workforce Partnership has been really good about saying, okay, here's some sample occupations in energy construction utilities that a realistic student might want to do. So you see the red hexagon. You see there the R. You can see electrical power line installers and repairers. And what would be the earnings per hour and what would be the education level for that child. So we're constantly telling kids, hey, if you're realistic, look what you can do. Hey, if you're investigative, the next blue hexagon there, here's what you can do. And I'm really proud we created these with our industry partners. I want to give a shout out to Ms. Munguia. I saw you from Sweetwater Authority, Don Jones, San Diego County Water Authority. We have a great relationship with the San Diego County Water Authority, Sweetwater Authority, Otay Water District, and Cuyamaca to really go deep on what kids can do in the water industry. So we created these careers. I would challenge anybody on this call, and I pretty much know the answer. I'm saying this tongue in cheek. None of you were exposed to this when you were in school. Who could say that when they were in school, they were exposed to what a water systems operator was? Who could say that they knew what that was? And who could say that, hey, this R that's highlighted on this card on the right, the C that's highlighted on the card on the right, a realistic conventional student would have a great opportunity to be a water systems operator. You'll also see that as a student, I can say, wow, the median wages are $78,000. Now, this is one career where the projected growth over the next 10 years will decline by 3%. Nevertheless, what I hear from industry partners is the silver tsunami. We have a lot of folks who are retiring. Baby boomers are leaving. So the silver tsunami is going to leave this massive vacuum to take these jobs. So even though a job may be declining, you still have a lot of brain drain, if you will, that are happening that we got to get kids ready to take these next jobs. And we also are really strategic on making sure kids see that the education level required, if you are a high school graduate, there's a place for you. If you want to get a post-secondary certificate or an associate's degree, there's a place for you. If you want to get a bachelor's degree, there's a place for you, or a master's or PhD. So we diversify what kids see so we don't other anybody. If a student wants to get right into the workforce after high school, awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. They can work for 3, 4, 5 years and then go back and get their bachelor's degree. The point is, we never other a child or make a child feel less than because of their career aspirations. So another job I'd like to share with you is utility worker. So you can see on the bottom left, the San Diego County Water Authority. They were the ones giving us these jobs saying, hey, here's some really high growth or high paying or really great opportunities for students to be exposed to. So thank you to San Diego County Water Authority and Sweetwater Authority for giving us these jobs in Otay Water District. But again, you see on the right side, RIC. If you're realistic, investigative, and conventional, this might be a great job for you to do. A utility worker. What do they do? What is the projected growth here? And look at this growth, 13% over the next 10 years, which is much faster than average. So we know the jobs will be there for students. That's also important for families to know. Will this job be there when my child becomes an adult or working age? And the answer is yes. You also see the education level required. I think it's important to note that these cards are about this size that we give to students to put on a lanyard. So kids are actually taking these cards home. And on the left-hand side is the front, and on the right-hand side is the back. You'll see evidence of this in the subsequent pictures where kids are actually wearing these. So imagine the power of a child taking these careers home and saying, Mom, Dad, Tío, Tía, my brother, whoever, and saying, I want to be a utility worker. We know through research that that exposure matters. It might take 15 minutes of an exposure to change a child's life. And we do believe we're doing that in partnership with people like you. And finally, a water resources specialist. And I point this out because, yes, I am a firm believer it's okay for children to see, wow, I'm going to make a lot of money. I think that when we are not experiencing poverty and not exposing kids to how much money they can make in careers, I believe that's malpractice. It's okay for me to show a child experiencing poverty if you are investigative, you're enterprising, you're conventional, and with a bachelor's degree, you can make $190,000. And by the way, the projected growth of a water resources specialist is 21%. So again, families, children who are saying, oh my gosh, I have value. I am investigative. I am conventional. I can do this job. This is life changing. And again, I've said it multiple times. I want to thank our partners who gave us this knowledge to create these cards for children. So you can see here, look at our babies. Look at our young ladies who are looking at, this was an activity where they're understanding wastewater management. What happens after it rains? What happens to the wastewater? And how does that affect the environment? So we're doing some other things with environmental justice as well, and clean cities, and just that cycle of wastewater management. You'll notice this young lady here, look at her card. I can't see which card it is, but that's the back of her career that she chose. She's also utilizing a journal. You'll notice in the bottom left-hand corner that C. Children go through activities that replicate a realistic experience, an investigative experience, an artistic experience, a social, enterprising, and conventional, again, so that they can say, hey, I tested as a conventional kid. That was a strength of mine. I go through an experience. I didn't really like this. I don't think I'm really that conventional. Or, wow, I loved this. I'm totally conventional. Because what we also know through research is it's just as important for you to know what you don't like and what you may not want to do than what you do like and what you do want to do. So here's another example of the water experience. I want to point out again the lower left-hand corner, the S. This was a social experience that kids were doing in the water industry. So you can see kids are getting exposed to different PVC piping. This particular activity, they're trying to figure out the most efficient way for water to get somewhere, thinking through gravity, but it's also teaching them different skills and different vocabulary. What's an elbow joint? How would the pressure be modified if the water is going at a fast pace based on gravity through a mountain and then it hits an elbow joint? So all those different things, kids are just having a blast figuring out, and it's strengthening their resolve to figure out where they fit in the workforce and exposing them to those really high wage, high benefit jobs that you offer. So I want to go through this also. We have a design thinking lab, and design thinking is really, really fun. We've created with industry partners different design thinking challenges. So what we do is we ask people like you, what is it that you are struggling with in your job right now? And it might be, hey, you know, we're really struggling with evaporation. You know, when water is transported from point A to point B, we're struggling with evaporation. Just throwing something out. So we say, okay, what would be a wonderful activity to give to kids as a learning opportunity in the water industry to innovate water transportation while reducing evaporation? And we'll give those challenges to kids. And so what you see on the right is kids are figuring problems out. You'll see in the middle, they're actually iterating and thinking through, how could I design something? You'll see on the top, that was actually a design that they did. And I think it was, how would you utilize the environment to reduce water consumption? And then on the bottom, you'll see kids are actually thinking different ways that they could solve problems. This is so incredibly fun to watch. And I would argue this is something that every industry needs. Let's get kids together who are from different perspectives, different environments, different genders, different ethnicities. put them together because that replicates the real world experience and have them figure things out. Not only is it fun, not only are they learning, but they're also understanding those skills they need to have to collaborate and communicate with their peers when they get into the workforce. I've heard this from a lot of folks. I'm very fortunate, very blessed to traverse the county and talk to industry partners, talk to teachers, talk to entrepreneurs. And one of the things that they are expressing is the younger generation is having a lot of issues with look at me in the eye, let's collaborate. And we know why. There's a lot of work that's done on a phone or on a computer. So again, getting kids in this type of environment is super, super critical for success in the workforce. So we also have an information communication technologies and digital media experience where kids are getting exposed to cybersecurity. They're getting exposed to back-end work and front-end work, user design interface. This is a beautiful experience. And I mention this also because, as you well know, there's a lot of information and communication technologies to the water industry, critical infrastructure. A lot of ICT jobs exist for critical infrastructure. You also have people who tell a story. What is your digital media strategy? So there's this interdependence with all of these experiences that we just love to see with our kids. We also have a healthcare optometry experience, and I'm very happy to say we've partnered with multiple optometrists. Kids are able to come into the building and actually be an optometrist. They go to the optometrist chair. They learn about different prescriptions. And if you're like me, I'm 50 years old, I have to wear my prescription. So sometimes I'll go into the room and they'll design my eye experience to see if I can actually read the vision chart. They're also able to use artistic ability to innovate and design different frames based on jobs. So like the water industry, you have safety equipment, including safety eye equipment. We give challenges to kids to figure out the eye equipment for people in the water industry. Again, that interdependence that we're trying to do with these different industries. Because another thing we know about kids is a lot of them won't get into a career for 30 years. They may get into a career for 10 years and then go do something else. But the power of these experiences, it's not necessarily about the sector, it's about your skill set. And don't we want every child to feel valued and capable? And then if they want to go from optometry to water, they know they're investigative, they're artistic, they're social, and they can find a wonderful place in the water industry, even if they were in healthcare optometry. So we also have the upstairs lab experiences, and this is Design and Destiny. This is for our 6th through 12th grade. And I like to pause there and just point out, we do see 3rd grade through 12th grade in this innovation center. So going back to what I shared earlier, that high school, I would argue, is too late. Again, I'm not saying stop doing that. I think it's still incumbent upon kids, but we're really facing an uphill battle to some of those ingrained biases that kids may have if we wait until high school. So just so you're aware of that. So we have the advanced manufacturing lab, and they explore roles and occupations that use software and machines, different robotics technologies related to advanced manufacturing. So this is a really great experience. Kids do 3D printing to 3D print the base of a design that will light up. They also use computer assisted design, the CAD machine, to sketch a design in plastic. And then they do some really basic soldering. So you can see kids being able to utilize their skill in the upstairs advanced manufacturing lab. And then we have an ICT digital media lab. And I'd like to point out the picture that's furthest to the left with this young man who's sticking his hand out, ready to touch the drone. I've learned, thank you, San Diego County Water Authority. Thank you, Sweetwater Authority. I've learned that drone operators exist in your industry. And that's something I didn't know. I've also learned that drone technologies exist in law enforcement. Technologies exist in energy construction as well. My mind was blown. So once we figured that out, we had 3 of our teachers certified drone teachers now. So when students come to the LVIC, we talk to them about, hey, if you want to work for Sweetwater Authority, for example, you could be a drone operator so that you can go over the reservoirs, or you can go into hard to reach areas to see the pipelines in these places. So think of how beautiful that is, that interdependence of, I might really be passionate about drones. I want to be a drone operator, but like, what do I do? Well, you can go work for San Diego County Water Authority. This is how they use drones. You can go work for the Chula Vista Police Department. And Chula Vista is my neighborhood. That's why I keep referring to them. You can go work for the police department because they also have drone operators. So we're really thinking through how we can provide even more opportunities in your industries. And I want to point out again, we don't know this information without you. I had no idea that drone operators existed in the water industry. And because of collaboration and communication with partners like yourself, that's how we can provide that opportunity for our kids. So really excited about that. And then we have the middle school STEAM lab. This is very similar to the design thinking lab that I shared earlier, where kids come in, they learn about 3D printing, they create and print out name tags as you see here, and they also do podcasting. So this is really powerful too. We can give students opportunities to podcast around water industry issues. They love podcasting. This is the huge thing with our youth is being able to think through their stories and tell their stories. So how can you be involved? I'd like to take this opportunity to, first of all, acknowledge I've been talking a lot. I hope that this has been really engaging and important for you to recognize that we're in this together. We really want to make sure that our youth are thriving. We want to make sure our youth, particularly our youth who are experiencing poverty, have that equitable access to your jobs and your careers so that we can have a more equitable, just society. And we want kids who are experiencing poverty to be involved in the conversation, not only to help support their change in trajectory economically, but also their experience. You would be fascinated to hear a kid, hey, this is something that I experience walking to school every day. Hey, here's something that I notice with my my community. I want to change that. Sometimes because we're not in that environment, we don't think of really innovative solutions to problems. And so when we include more people, that's when the innovation happens again. So how can you be involved? You can visit the LVIC in San Diego. I would love to even see whoever was from Utah. Be awesome to bring you down there, because really what we're talking about here, there's no secret to this. This can be replicated. I acknowledge it's difficult. I acknowledge that it's something that you have to partner to learn, but this work can be done. And there's a lot of, again, factors coming together where the appetite for this type of work is there, because education right now, we're scratching our heads like, wow, we've got to do something different because the data is not going up. It's actually going down. Engagement is going down. We have to do different things. And I can share with you that every time a teacher visits our center, they're asking what's next. I love to do this in my school. So we changed our scheduling this year to where we see students Monday through Thursday, and on Fridays, we don't see students. Why? Number one, we have a food distribution, and so we have an open campus. So for safety reasons, we want to make sure that our campus is secure. And so the food distribution happens on Fridays, but we can deploy our teachers to different districts and different schools to help co-create and plan this type of experience at their own school. And that's really important because really, we don't want to just be a one-dip field trip, if that makes sense. And we talk about field trip because that's the nomenclature most people know, but we want to be the pedagogy changer for classrooms throughout the county, throughout the state, throughout the country. So we've set up our schedule to be able to support teachers back at home base. And I think that's important for you to know too, because this wouldn't just be a flash in the pan one-time experience. Our hope is to get this in classrooms so it's a daily occurrence. How else could you be involved? Philanthropy to support your careers at the LVIC. We're really proud of the partnerships we have, the human resource time, the partnership is really the most important part because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know the jobs and the careers you have and what you need. So that's really, really important. I want to point that out. I think what's also important is that you come to the LVIC when you've given us information, when we've created something so that you can give us feedback from your perspective. Hey, this is hitting the mark. Keep it up. Hey, that's hitting the mark, but you need to tweak this so we can edit and make it even better. But we also ask for anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 to our partners, and they pay for the career cards and the journals, because those are consumables. Those are things that go home with our students. But as you saw, the payment of those career cards and those journals, we actually affix your logo to it. We design it with you so that it's a very symbiotic relationship. So when students go home, they're able to see, oh, San Diego County Water Authority. Awesome. I recognize that logo. It's a good faith effort to make sure that our caregivers and our parents are also seeing the innovation that's happening with public education and public works and private industry. Finally, how can you be involved? You could develop a partnership with us. Higher education. You know, how can we work together so that we can, which we're doing right now with Cuyamaca College, how is it that we can work together and have a Cuyamaca supported experience that could lead to digital badging and lead to a digital portfolio to where I'm a student, I go through 3 different water-focused industry careers that are co-created by Cuyamaca College, San Diego County Office of Education. So when I show up for an interview, I've got my phone. I'm able to say, hey, my name is Matthew Tessier. I went through these 3 Cuyamaca SDCOE focused experiences. Think of the power of the employer knowing that. So that's one thing that we're working on right now. Higher education also. Are there opportunities for us to work together to where students can go through these experiences and then maybe they get some sort of scholarship to get into a water-focused career or maybe a small business career? Or how could we work together to make it easier and more accessible for our children who are experiencing poverty? Also, private industry. I've already shared with you multiple times how critical it is that we work together so that we can understand your jobs and what your industry looks like so that we can work together to provide those access points to our students. And also, again, public works. I intentionally put this last bullet here because I want to acknowledge I have met nobody in public works who doesn't want to do great things for kids. Everybody I've met in public works wants to do great things for kids. The challenge I see y'all face is, how do I do that? And what I've seen quite frequently is public works does great things. They have great initiatives. They have pots of money, and usually they'll focus on a school and maybe a classroom in that school. I'm offering, that's awesome. And let's think about how we can do that with 500,000 kids, not just 25 kids. So I can provide that conduit for not only one school or one classroom. Let's open this up to the entire county of San Diego. And what I know in my heart, because I've seen it, this started in Chula Vista 7 years ago. We started putting these experiences throughout the city. The county got word of it, and the county said, hey, can you come up and do this at the county? That's actually how I got to the county. So it just expands. And I believe we started in Chula Vista in a city. We're now at the San Diego County Office of Education. I have no doubt that this could go statewide. And after that, it could go stateswide. And then perhaps we're working with the federal government, the Department of Education, to embed this work in every single school district in America. I know we can get that done. So here is, I invite you to do any of those 3 things. My contact information is here, matthew.tessier@sdcoe.net. I also included in this, I know this was put in the chat, this presentation, I put a web link to the Linda Vista Innovation Center, and there's just a really cute video in there that I'd like for you to see. My asterisk is we are still working on the web page where every widget you see will not be words, it'll actually be videos that kids will be talking through their experience. So thank you so incredibly much for your time. I am just really humbled to be able to share this information with you, and I'd be open to any questions or comments. Oh, one more thing. Tiffany, that's what I shared. There was one more thing. How are we doing on time? Great. We talk about diversity and partnerships and awareness and skills. I'm super, super proud to share this with everybody. Over the summer, we intentionally focused on Black African-American students who are first-generation college goers. We partnered with the University of San Diego, and the University of San Diego, which is right down the street from us, has an initiative, and it's called BIGGIE, the Black Ingenious Initiative. And what this Black and Genius initiative does is it focuses on first generation Black African American children within the county and first generation children who are learning English as a second language. And if you join this Biggie cohort in 6th grade and you stay in this cohort from 6th grade to 12th grade, by the end of your 12th grade year, you get a full ride to USD. Now, I don't know if y'all know how much it costs to go to USD. It's about $250,000 now. How powerful of an experience. Talk about life-changing for first-generation children who have historically been othered. Well, we caught wind of that and we developed a deep partnership with Biggie. So over the summer, over the spring break, and over Thanksgiving, we're actually planning Thanksgiving right now, the Biggie cohort of students actually come to the LVIC, and based on what they want to learn, we teach them career-focused experiences. So when the kids came over the summer, they were learning about water. They were learning about building submarines. They were learning about drones. They were learning about optometry. So I mention that because, again, a pocket of kids who have historically been othered, who don't necessarily have access to college, we know they probably don't have access also to these career development opportunities. That was successfully executed over the summer. And lastly, we partnered with Bonsall, Mountain Empire, and Spencer Valley. And if you live in San Diego, those are really way out in the mountains, rural, high concentration of indigenous students. We partnered with USD there. So, and it's about an hour and a half, 2-hour bus drive. So it's not realistic for them to come down to our building every day. We partnered with USD. We had 58 kids who were able to come down to USD, and they dormed at USD all week. And during the day, they came to the LVIC and learned about all these different careers. So again, high concentration of indigenous children who are getting the college experience, they're staying on a campus, and during the day, they're figuring out and learning their strengths, interests, and values, and they're seeing these different careers that they can be. So those are just 2 examples of some things that I'd like to share with you, because with your support, we can continue to do these great things for our kids. And again, thank you. I'm very verbose, I know, but I get so passionate. So I'll pause, I'll stop there, and I'd love to hand it back over to Tiffany if there's any questions.
Okay, I know there's gonna be a ton of questions. I even have questions, and we've been talking about this forever. Lots of wows. Wow, that's fantastic. Excellent presentation. Wow. I hope you know this. I hope you know that what you're doing is significant and inspirational. And, I've been telling you forever, how do we get this in Orange County? And then how do we expand it, right? I see Lori Smith raising her thumb, and I know we have some of our K-12 contractors, MODOC's K-12 contractors on the call. You guys, he is so generous. Please take Dr. Tessier up on his offer to go visit the Linda Vista Innovation Center. I've been once, I've had another partner go. I could go every day for the next year and probably not be bored, because the magic that's happening in that building is truly inspiring, and it helps us remember it's not just about checking a box. This program is so intentional and so well designed. Dr. Tessier kind of floats past, and then they have a badge, and then they have it is the whole of this program. It is the vision, but it's the little things, the attention to detail, like the students taking home a badge to consider what their future may be or may look like. I'm a big proponent for taking things home. And we do that with our K-12 resources, because not every student gets the program. But when they bring it home, this is also how we engage our parents and our tias and our tios and our grandmas and our siblings, because now they have something that they can discuss together, and that is transformational. So, I could be on a soapbox all day singing the praises of you and Linda Vista Innovation Center, but I deeply encourage you to take him up on his offer to go visit, because the elements that he has in this program, we could introduce some of that. We can learn from what he's gone through and his magnificent team, how they have designed and developed these programs, integrated them. And I see questions in the chat about metrics. So let me start there and then we'll go ahead and start taking questions. Let's start with Dawn and then we're going to go to the questions in the chat. Dawn.
Yeah, Matt, can you share with the group a little bit about the work that you did while you were at Chula Vista on the power station and the hydro station? Because I think that can show another aspect of some of the stuff that's going on.
Yeah, thank you for that, Don. Great to see you, my friend. So one of the things that I did not mention, I'm a very humble guy. I always talk about it's not what I have done, it's what I've been fortunate to be a part of. And yes, I do believe leadership does matter. And I've just been really blessed and fortunate to have wonderful people show me what it means to be a leader. And so what Don is alluding to, I've been doing this work for about 8 years. And so the first 6 years of this work was done in the Chula Vista Elementary School District. If you don't know Chula Vista, it's the largest kindergarten through 6th grade school district in the state of California. So it's substantial, about 30,000 kids, 50 schools. It's huge. So we started working with Qualcomm. This is where it all started. We started working with Qualcomm where our students were going to learn about information communication technology jobs at Qualcomm. One of our schools was doing it, Feaster Edison. Feaster is the most economically depressed area in Chula Vista. So we were really doing that curb cut culture in Chula Vista, trying to expose kids experiencing poverty to Qualcomm type jobs. And when I went and visited this center, I said, this is insane. We got to do this for all kids. So fast forward 2 years, 1 or 2 years later, we had 35 kids getting this experience to over 3,500 kids getting the experience. That was so successful. We partnered with San Diego Gas and Electric, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and we created a clean energy focused experience in one of the libraries in Chula Vista. Fast forward the next year, then we partnered with the Sweetwater Authority and Otay Water District, and we have what's called the hydro station, and that's actually in the desalination plant in Sweetwater Authority's Richard J. Reynolds desalination plant. So put in your mind's eye, you're a 5th grade student, you're literally going to a desalination plant, you're learning about the membranes, you're looking outside at how they're doing all the water desalination. So it's literally the world of work. We had kids also figure out, hey, what is this board that the front office operator, what is he looking at? So that hydro station was a beautiful partnership, and we got that in, again, the desalination plant. Fast forward the next year, we created another experience called the sound station. So we partnered with the city of Chula Vista and got it's called the creative economy, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's, music and arts. And we got that created in a Boys and Girls Club. And I left, so I'm not part of this part, but a new station was just opened in another Chula Vista Public Library called the Life Sciences Station, which is all life sciences and biotechnology. I appreciate the question, Don, and the only reason I'm giving all that context is because this is a city government. And this city government, the city of Chula Vista, gave 3 libraries rent-free for us to do great things for kids. The Sweetwater Authority, rent-free in a desalination plant, giving students an experience. So really, the message I'm trying to convey to you is city government, public works, public education, private industry, philanthropy. This works. It all comes together. And so the County Office of Education came down and saw some of these experiences and basically said, hey, we need to get this into more kids' hands. We've got to do this. So I was very fortunate. They offered the job to me to do this on a countywide level. And here we are. I've been there for 2 years now, and we've got 3 of those elementary experiences and about 4 on the upstairs, as I shared with you. My goal is to get all 7, but I also have a goal of deepening the water-focused career work with all of you all to continue to iterate and innovate what we are doing. So it's just been I don't even want to say wild. I don't think there's a word in the English language to share how happy and wonderful this work has been. And to hear kids say, well, I'll share one with you. I got the hair on the back of my head. Maybe about a month ago, there was a child who actually wanted, you see the water resources specialist job that I had shared with you, $189,000. There was a young lady who was going through the experience. She walked up to one of my directors who was in the environment, and she's my director's a Latina herself. And so this little girl was a Latina. She was from, I don't remember if it was National City or Feaster, but probably, not probably, one of our more economically distressed areas. And she went up to Alicia and said, she looked at her card and she said, do you think if I make this kind of money, I can live in Chula Vista? Oh, so she must have been from National City. Can you imagine that? And Alicia saying, absolutely, you can do this, because she was saying, hey, I'm investigative and I'm conventional. I could do this. That is life-changing, y'all. And I know you know that, but to see a little girl who looked like my Gabriela saying that was that kind of like made my year, literally made my year. And that's what we experience very frequently at the LVIC.
That's awesome. I think what I really love about this, and for those of us in water and energy, whether it's communications or we're in education, and we have science courses where we're trying to explain how water or energy works, why they're important. And sometimes that message falls on deaf ears. When you incorporate career and you can be part of the solution or the solutions, that becomes even more powerful. So not only are we introducing young people to solutions, we're introducing them to citizenship, right? What does it take to be a citizen and know where your water comes from, your electricity comes from, know how we need to protect those natural resources? And then I know I have some environmentalists on the call, and this is near and dear to my heart. It also teaches us how to care for our environment so that we're caring for the resources that care for us. So this is like multifold. I love this. There are some questions. Bill, do you want to ask your question? Would you like me to ask it?
Either way, I just wanted to first compliment you on this really innovative approach down there, and that you are addressing a need that our foundation 5-6 years ago thought we need to wed education with water and energy industry. So that's why we started WEEA when we did. And I'm interested in what kind of metrics that you're using to measure the success of these efforts, and how you're using some kind of visuals to help maybe share that with our WEEA partners, and be able to say, hey, this is amazing stuff that's happening in San Diego. Here's the impacts that happened over the last 2 or 5 years. Kids were in this headset when we first came to them, and then after this intervention, there were these changes, and we are addressing the silver tsunami in this whole effort.
And thank you for that, Bill. Excellent question. I am going to share with the team. That is another passion of mine that we are getting to. So let me give you an example. One of the things that we're really lucky, we were actually able to consume 25 different folks from within the organization. And we created what's called the DICE team that is now under our innovation department, the Data and Impact Center of Excellence. So what we're trying to do is figure out with our partners, because this is kind of how it works, is you get grant funds. Well, you probably know this. You get grant funds that will help support maybe a 3 to 5 year initiative. And what we would like to do is go out for a grant or work collaboratively. And you as industry tell us, we really would like to see more Latinas in this space. And so let's go ahead and figure out a partnership with National School District, for example, and let's survey them 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. After these experiences, we'll focus on 35 Latinas. Here's where they were in 3rd grade. Here's where they were in 4th grade. Here's where they were in 5th grade. So we're right there with you. That's next truth be told, we are not there yet, but that is absolutely something that we would like to have, because I do recognize in order for this to proliferate on a state or national level, you do have to have the data, right? We want to make sure that we have objective information to show that this target group of kids, this is what the trajectory looks like. And I think for people like you, what is it that you're not experiencing? Are your boardrooms only men? I don't know. Do we want to focus on the leadership aspirations of girls? Are there no African American representation in these jobs? Do we want to focus on that? But I think if we work together, when we work together, that's the beauty of these partnerships. And then we can work collaboratively on what that will look like. Because that's a great question and it's important. It's really, really important. What I can tell you is, right, that law of intuition, I see it every day in the kids. I see their faces. I see what they're saying. I listen to them. I know it's working, but I also recognize that's subjective. So there has to be some sort of objective information to what it is that we're doing. So coming.
Fantastic. Congratulations on your work.
Yeah, and to that point, it's very interesting, right? When we first assumed leadership of WEEA, the goal then is, I have been hearing about the silver tsunami. Let's ask everybody what their numbers are so that we could, figure out what we're really dealing with. Is this a, Chicken Little situation or what? And so we ended up, because we weren't successful on our own, this is again where partnerships and connections and networks come in. We tapped the COE to do the statewide report. The recommendations were not a surprise. Everything that we have that created gaps, nobody was like, oh, what do you mean? We've got to work on diversity. No way. There's a skills gap. We knew this, but without that data, without that quantifiable information that we can point to and say for reals, we're not making this up. We've found that it's very hard for people to jump on board and say, then we're going to make some changes. But once we have that data that we can point to, once you have those metrics that say, this is where the real change is, you're going to have to put a lock on your door because already we're excited and anxious to know what's next. And that data that you're gathering, I can tell you it's super important, even if we already know it, right? Even if we're already clear about it. So more questions in the chat. How many staff are working to make your program work year round? So the Linda Vista Innovation Center, paid versus unpaid.
So great question. So we kind of have a smorgasbord of staff currently. We have 3 full-time FTEs. I don't know if that's the nomenclature, like full-time equivalent. So full-time employees. We have 3 of those folks downstairs for the optometry, healthcare, ICT, and the energy construction utilities. So they are pretty much 12-month employees. Obviously, they have some times off, and we work strategically to say, okay, if they're working in July, for example, we would have schools in the South Bay coming up because South Bay is a modified year round. And if we're servicing students in San Diego Unified, we might be seeing them starting in September because they have a longer summer. Our teachers upstairs are half-time FTE, and they are CTE teachers. So it's a little bit different where we've got credentialed K-12 teachers on the bottom. Upstairs, it's more of a CTE focus and they're part-time. We also have an ed tech team. There's 5 people on our ed tech team. So they'll be doing a lot of the design thinking challenges. And then we have, as I alluded to, the DICE team. I mention this because really what would be optimal is if we had 14 teachers full-time. And right now we have basically 3 full-time, 3 part-time. Now, that's where, so I always like to create good problems. The more partners we have, the more appetite there is for this type of work. So Bill, to go into you, that's the data I can use to go to my boss and say, hey, we are servicing, which by the way, I want everybody to know, last year we serviced 5,200 kids. This year we're on track to service over 12,000. So that's a data piece. The appetite is there. And so I'm able to go to my boss and say, look, we are servicing 12,000 kids. Awesome. This is awesome. Yet there's 500,000 in the county. And I'm not proposing we can really realistically serve 500,000 in a year. But imagine if we're doing that with 3 full-time and 3 part-time, if we had 14 full-time, imagine what we could do together for our kids. So all to say, we are on a very limited budget and staff, but I will also tell you, that's one of my strengths also. I am resilient. And we will make sure that we continue to expand this great work, but we're still in infancy at the county where, you know, we started our elementary experiences literally in February of this year. So we will continue to expand though.
And, you know, WEEA, for example, is a force multiplier. So I think I can speak for most people in the room where you need help or you need support. That's something we do very well. And I think we do that for each other. So for example, we have people who ask for sponsorship letters or support letters for grants. And when you can say this collaborative or this collective supports this, it goes a lot further than just a single organization. And I think it's the same for what you're doing. And I think we can use your tactics to make this important in our jobs, because a lot of us are doing other duties as assigned in this work, and it's not sustainable.
And
So-
and it's Tiffany, if I could go on that note as well. So
Please.
I've always been, one of the things that I also didn't share. So one of the questions earlier this morning was, what did you want to be when you were younger? And I wanted to be a cabinet builder. My dad was a cabinet builder. Multiple generations of cabinet builders. We immigrated from Canada through North Dakota, long line of clock builders, cabinet builders. I wanted to be my dad badly. I have asthma. So you can imagine a cabinet shop, sawdust and lacquer thinner don't work well with people with asthma. So I was crushed. I wanted to be like my dad. My dad was really, really good at teaching me how to learn things that were very non-traditional. So as I shared with you, I was not good in school. I made bad decisions. I'll leave it at that. My dad was real good at figuring out, hey, son, you're going to build this wrestling match for your little G.I. Joe toys or whatever, and this is what I want it to look like. That made sense to me. I understood angles. I understood measurement. I understood that. And so I learned very early how we have to innovate the educational experience for a lot of kids, myself included. I mention that because I'm always trying to think innovatively of what we can do. So when I hear folks talk on this call, I think about people from throughout California. I think of people from Utah. I think about how could we work together and maybe follow the medical model to where we have multiple agencies, LA, San Diego, Utah, Stanislaus, Fresno, where everybody has skin in the game and we're contributing to maybe a staff cost. But everybody actually has the opportunity to come down like the medical model and observe a co-funded teacher doing this and then working with teachers from those different counties. They go back and do their work, and then the county office can come out and provide feedback and input on what you're doing in your home base. I mean, I think we have to really think differently and open up collaboration and partnerships from throughout the county and the state. And I think it could work. So I just mentioned that because I don't think it's an all or nothing. I think we could have like a 1/5, 1/5, 1/5, 1/5, 1/5 funded something and then work collaboratively on, okay, what does that partnership look like and how are we learning from each other based on what we're funding? So I just offer that because we do need to think differently.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think, you know, you look at all of the different educational institutions, and we're talking not just the K-12 system, but you know, community colleges and trade schools and beyond. And then you look at how many utilities we have in the state, and then you look at the contractors that we have, or, you know, I mean, we're massive. And we are all experiencing the same sort of problems. And we can co-design, as you've said, and I love to do, to come up with better solutions. And we've been able to do that in piecemeal, right? If someone says, hey, this is something that we don't have that could be a great benefit, So co-designing that and getting that, but it's one entity. How can we collaborate in ways? And I'd love to continue that conversation. And I'm sure there are others here who would love to start noodling how we can do that in a more collaborative fashion. Next question. Do you replicate any of these programs with San Diego County Office of Education's juvenile court and community schools?
Excellent question. So we refer to we started referring to our district as District 1 because in the past we're the 43rd district. We service adjudicated youth, incarcerated youth, youth who have been suspended or expelled from their home districts. We service about 1,100 kids, and it's referred to as the juvenile court and community schools. And so our new superintendent, love her to death. She's amazing. I've been working with her for about 15 years now. She has a heart of gold, and her push has been to increase access for our JCCS kids. So the answer to your question, do we replicate this for JCCS kids? Yes, and we can do more. So like as an example, how is it that we work with incarcerated youth who don't have any rule violations, who can come to the LVIC, with their probation officer and get an experience like this? So most of the JCCS, not most, all of the JCCS students that we currently serve are not incarcerated youth. They're youth who may be, pregnant or parenting. They may be in the foster care system. They may be experiencing homelessness. So we do serve those students who are in those situations, but we're trying to figure out also what we can do to incarcerated and adjudicated youth, because the reality is they're going to be in our communities. They're community members. And so we don't ever want to write a kid off or throw them away because of a decision they made, especially at such a young age. So we're trying to figure that out. So if you all have any ideas, that would be great, because we are limited to what we can do in detention facilities for obvious reasons, right? You can't do drones, like sharp objects, things like that. So we have to think creatively, and we're trying to do that now. But something like a water-focused experience with, again, PVC pipes or different type of realia we can do for kids would be fantastic. So I'm all ears for that. But yes, we do service all of our other JCCS kids who are not incarcerated.
Great. Another question, only San Diego County funding. Do you receive funding? Where's your funding come from?
Again, that's kind of like a smorgasbord. So we have, you all know what a general fund is. So we have general fund dollars from the San Diego County Office of Education. We also have some philanthropic dollars that we use through our Classroom of the Future Foundation. It's a 501c3. So we have some dollars from there. And we also get not a significant amount, but we do get a lot of grant dollars to do different things. You may or may not recall, I kind of barely alluded to it. We have a submarine building experience because we got a $900,000 grant from the federal government. Their goal is to build, I believe it's one submarine per year for the next 10 years. So we got a grant to help kids start to learn about what is submarine building, very basic welding type of things, because the federal government too is like, hey, which by the way, if you don't know how much it costs to build a submarine, holy smokes. But I don't, a lot of people don't know underwater welding. I mean, it's a dangerous job. You are bringing in bank, all of these different things that we're exposing kids to. So that's a long way of saying we get grant funding. We have philanthropic dollars through our 501c3, and we have San Diego County Office of Education general fund dollars that really runs this whole operation.
Wonderful, thank you. We have a couple of other questions that were submitted at registration that I definitely want to get to. Just checking again for hands. Does anyone else who's still on the call have a question before I jump to the questions that were submitted at registration? What age groups are most interested in learning about career opportunities?
I would say, and I don't want anybody to be shocked, we started last year servicing transitional kindergarten students. These are 3- and 4-year-old kids, y'all. Now, we barely dipped into this one. This was a big risk, but what we started with was exposing kids to electrical engineers and computer scientists for TK kids. So I would argue you can go down to right when they start their educational experience. The engagement, and you're talking about 3 or 4-year-olds, y'all. Well, there's 20 of them. And that's why you always hear people when they go into a classroom and go, I don't know, I didn't even know y'all did this. This is crazy. These kids are so engaged and so happy, and they're wearing little hats that say, I am an engineer. I am a computer scientist. So that question is a great question. I would say right when they begin their educational experience, we have to start exposing them immediately because, again, gender, racial stereotypes, those are real. Those are very real. I've heard it myself, people saying that's a boy job, that's a girl job. And again, when a child is exposed that early, when they get that positive visual, that positive language, that really changes the trajectory of children's lives. So right when they start their educational experience.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that because it allows us to see more who we can be, and despite whatever challenges that we face, how we can contribute, how we can imagine, and the possibilities of, right, can I live in this area? Can I drive that car? Can I have a job every day that, that shows up every day, where I don't have a whole season where I'm not working? And it seems so simple, but for young people who are experiencing poverty, their world is about survival. It's not about dreaming and imagining. It's just about survival. And I think that's kind of something that we have to remember. So that hops right into the biggest barriers that underrepresented minorities and women face getting into the water and wastewater energy. What insight do you have? What have you learned?
I think that it's very similar. I would say that if we don't do a good job of providing access, then really the bombardment, whether they're ill-intentioned or good-intentioned, the bombardment that our kids go through in social media, billboards, what they see in society, many times will dictate what they feel like they can or cannot do. And so I think providing this access, again, I've seen it with my own eyes, a 4-hour experience can literally light a fire under a young lady who wants to be in the water industry. A 4-hour experience can show a boy, hey, you know what? I want to be in the healthcare industry and I want to be a nurse. And society would typically tell you, hey, no, nurses, that's a female job. So unless we expose kids to what they can be and help them realize you have strengths, you have interests, you have values, you have aspirations, you can do anything you want. That's really where I believe we've probably struggled with, particularly women, because, we'll go back 50, 60 years ago. I mean, women's economic opportunity was very, very limited, if at all. What have we done to share with girls, our young girls, this is what you can be based on what you want to do? So I think a lot of it's exposure and access. Without that, we are just going to continue to perpetuate the same issues that we have always had. And one other anecdotal note, the experience in Chula Vista that is the innovation station, which is ICT. I'll never forget this. I had a young lady who was picking her career. And I said, hey, what career are you going to choose? And she goes, I really don't see one here. I'm going way back about 5, 6 years. She said, I don't really see one here. And I said, well, what would you like to do? What's something that you're curious about? And she said, I really want to be a police officer, but that's a boy job. She told me this. I said, oh my God. It just so happened, though, we had a relationship with school resource officers. The police department and city hall were literally across the street. So I was able to connect with one of our school resource officers. That school resource officer showed up to that kid's school the next day and was like, hi, I'm Officer Caceres. I heard you wanted to be a police officer. Imagine that. Imagine the power of what that did to that kid. Boy, hey, Bill, I'd love to have the data on what that did. But that's just an example of why representation and access totally matter. And I have always been a big believer in, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not gonna tell you what to do because that's my perspective. What I am gonna do, I'm gonna expose you to anything and I'll help you get to where you want to go. You have options.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you've even answered the last question with the last answer, and that's how to engage the younger generation, right? Because we're struggling with what that looks like, but I think you've done a wonderful job summarizing that even with your last response. So thank you for that.
Yep.
We do have another question in the chat, a breakdown of funding by funding category, if that's possible. I'm not sure if you would like Nirmala to email you directly, if you want to answer that question and get a little bit deeper with that to help her figure out how we can replicate what that looks like and what we have to plan for.
Yeah, you know what? I'd love to maybe chop it up on another team's call or maybe even face to face and kind of
Sure.
figure that out because it could look a bunch of different ways, honestly. And I think the proof in the pudding is making sure that everybody who is involved in a partnership has some sort of, for lack of a better way to term it, skin in the game. I find that that's what's most powerful, but I will reiterate to everybody on this call when forming partnerships, I feel this way, and I highly encourage you also. We'll take the money, that's fine, but money is just 1/10 of what makes this really important and powerful. It's the human resource hours, it's that connection, it's that sharing of knowledge. That's really the most important part. Yes, money for consumables and things like that, but unless we work together, it's really, really challenging. So for that question, I would love to sit down and talk to you because then you can almost like customize and tailor it and say, hey, here's how this funding is going to go to pay for this, and here's going to provide the space, and here's who's going to provide the person delivering content. So you can kind of strategically figure that out.
Brilliant. Thank you for offering to do that. Anybody else? Last call before we take a break. We're just a little bit over, which again, I don't generally mind because we'll have our discussion following to take a break, get some air, stretch out for 10 minutes. Last question, last chance. All right, let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break. Thank you, Dr. Tessier, for an excellent presentation, for some inspiration, some insight, giving us some things to think about. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and I'm so pleased that we were able to host you and you agreed to come on and share with us. So thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. We do have a couple of breakout room questions, however, and we've noticed that the last two WEEA meetings were similar. People have busy schedules, they tap in for as long as they can, and then they have to go. So we're going to not do the breakouts because we're down to 20 people, and instead we're going to have a general discussion where everyone who's still here can collaborate. And I think this is also one of the really beautiful things about hosting these meetings is the discussion that follows, because we can start thinking about that. These are our prompts, and thank you, Dr. Tessier, for helping me with question number 2, helping me redefine that question so that it was very clear and also addressed equity. So question 1, discuss the potential challenges of early career exploration and provide solutions, keeping DAPs in mind. And 2, how do we maximize community engagement in fostering career awareness? And then we're going to create a list and talk about how we can support the efforts of our various communities and networks to continue that path, helping us foster career awareness. You have the QR code if you want to scan in and type on your own, but I also have a note taker. So our note taker is going to capture our ideas. And again, everybody gets a copy of this afterwards. So without further ado, let me share that screen. And of course, as always, I try to plan for breakouts, but happy to adjust. And so let's start talking about potential challenges of early career exploration. Dr. Tessier, do you want to kick us off? What challenges have you come across? Oh, I unmute.
There we are. I would say the biggest challenge is, again, going back to when you collaborate with people who are not in your field, sometimes I'll keep it positive. People don't know what they don't know. And so when we talked earlier about your strengths, I think ego sometimes really gets in the way. So for example, me as an educator, yes, there are certain things I'm really good at and I know. I don't know though the inner workings of the water industry. And the only reason I know things now is because I've put my ego away, talked to the water industry and realized there's a lot of things I'm going to learn. There's a lot of listening I have to do because I don't know everything. I don't know this, but I think some of that also exists in public works and private industry is sometimes people think they know everything about something, and that really gets in the way of partnership. So I really appreciated earlier in the chat when you heard a lot of people saying, hey, I'm a good listener, I'm a good collaborator, I'm a good communicator. I think that's really important. From my experience, that's been one of the biggest issues is the ability or the inability to put ego away and really truly collaborate to make great things happen.
That's lovely. Thank you for that. Syria, is that how you say your name?
Yeah, actually, great job.
Yes, thank you.
I was just along those lines. The first thing that came to my mind was speaking the same language. And I think that goes to what Dr. Tessier said about, you know, putting that ego aside is we don't always use the same terminology, especially if we're in different industries. You know, for the education folks, we might say things a certain way. For those in the water district, they might, or utilities, you might say it a different way. Engineers are going to speak a different way. And so it's creating that common language as we're trying to reach ultimately the students, I think is really, really important. It can be a challenge if we're all saying the same thing in our own industry language, if you will.
Yeah, I love that. And to even take it a step further, when we're co-designing, when we have decided to co-design and we build those partnerships, are we using language that our young students would understand? And that's kind of sits top of mind for me because we're redesigning a website, right? And when you're talking about search engine optimization and what we say versus what people are searching for, and these are adults, how are we co-designing these experiences so that we're not excluding
Yeah,
opportunity, alienating, right? Or creating
Absolutely.
these barriers because you just think, I'm like I said, I'm in this leadership class and we took a finance course, and honestly, it was up here. I'm like, I don't even know what you're saying. And I work with budgets. I don't even know. So making sure too, when we're designing these experiences, that we keep in mind who our young audience groups are and what they'll be able to comprehend. I would say that's a good challenge. Nirmala.
Thank you. I was wondering, like, not everyone's family is going to be supportive of some career path that they're hearing about. Is the positive reinforcement at the center during the holidays enough to keep that going? Do you have to do more mentorship? I'm just wondering about that for Mr. Tessier.
I didn't catch the first part. Can you repeat that,
Okay,
please?
let's just say I go home and I say, oh, I can be an aerospace engineer. And my family is like, nah, we can't pay for college or whatever, right? Not everyone's family will be supportive. So I was just curious if the positive reinforcement they're getting at your center during the holidays is sufficient, or have you thought if you had all the resources that a mentor for the year or something would also be beneficial, or maybe it's enough, just those 3 periods they're coming to your center is sufficient to keep them realizing they can do anything?
That is an excellent question. I think all of those together, I think would provide the best experience. So you've got kind of like that experience that you have at the LVIC. And then as I shared with you, having our teachers available on those Fridays to make sure that the visiting teacher, when they're back at their school, they can continue to give that support and that experience to that student. And having a mentor, I think, is also wildly important. So that's one of the things that we have to figure out together as well. I think it's unrealistic to say, hey, you, for example, could you mentor 3,500 kids this year? It's kind of like, well, so we have to figure out how to leverage whether it's AR and VR, and kids are putting on headsets and they're talking virtually with people, also doing face-to-face, also figuring out how we could take kids on a virtual field trip, if you will, to, let's say, the Sweetwater Dam or to your building, and also have those experiences where the parents can come in and we can help support and educate parents also traversing, hey, I want to get a bachelor's degree. Well, what does that look like? Or, hey, I want to get right into the career industry right after high school. Well, how does a application fill out look like? How does this look like? So I think it's more of, it's a 360-degree support system. And that's kind of what I'm asking for you all to help me figure those things out, because I would argue, while the LVIC wildly important, and I stick by that, there's still more that we can do to continue to provide that access and that support for our kids. Really good
And
question.
it is a great question. And these are the things, right, that you get brought up that you're like, oh, right. And that too, right? Because I saw firsthand in action, Nirmala as a mentor, bringing those students focus and bringing those students to life, and having them present their most professional selves when the door was open for an opportunity to attend a conference, right? And kind of going backwards when we were talking about, well, how can I afford this? You know, or our family can't afford this. It's not even just the young students. I mean, I can't tell you, I grew up in Colorado, like I said, but when our school would have ski trips, my mom couldn't afford them, so I didn't go. And it's those type of things when you just open the door. Or for our young students that attended the conference, you know, we had a max of the number of students we were able to sponsor. Nirmala asked again because she had somebody else. And he was looking at his bank account to see if he could afford the registration fee to have an opportunity to speak with employers. That's it. Obviously, we had to sponsor, but yeah, mentors like Nirmala, how can we be mentors with our limited amount of time? What can we do that's impactful and powerful? And I know LADWP was here for a little while and then they had to go, but they were operating in a NEPRIS space through COVID, where they could speak to classrooms and they would have different professionals come. You know, could there be micro mentorships, or are there community groups that are already mentoring that we could tap into and build partnerships and advocacy? I think that's an excellent point, and one that's missed a lot.
Yeah, one of the things, if I could just offer really quickly also, Nirmala, we have something in our building too. I think we're up to about 15 now. We are very strategic on when we partner with industry, we actually will ask people to create these posters. So if you've seen Harry Potter, they're very much like Harry Potter-ish. They're these posters that have industry professionals that look like our kids, that when you scan the poster comes to life and actually talks to you and welcomes you to the innovation center. So we've got posters. The predominant posters we have are in English, but we have women, we have African American community members, Latino community members, we have men, we have women that represent the diversity we have in our community. And we have posters that welcome children in primary language Spanish, posters that welcome children in primary language Arabic, and posters in primary language Vietnamese. Because if you are a emerging bilingual child whose first language is Vietnamese, imagine the power of being welcomed into a space in Vietnamese. You belong here. You're going to go on a learning journey. So I think that's also really important, and that's something you as partners can do as well. Hey, who are we trying to target? And I keep throwing this out there because I'm a dad of 3 girls. If we want more female representation, well, who are the female utility workers? Who are the female wastewater managers? And let's get them in front of kids. So that's a really clear message. You can do this. Oh, and by the way, there's somebody that looks like you who's going to welcome you here. So I just mentioned that because I see a lot of people on here that could do a poster themselves.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Karen.
Yeah, so this follows up with that. I think that one of the challenges I've seen in career development and workforce development and education efforts is we have teachers who are experts at engaging different aged youth, and we have professionals who are experts at understanding the workforce need and the ins and outs of accessing different career paths. These expertise like doesn't always overlap, right? And so what I've seen is that when you have someone like Nirmala, who's really great, who is the expert at the profession and also really great at engaging with kids, like Nirmala, you probably get asked to come speak to students a lot, right? But I think there's tools like these posters that Dr. Tessier is talking about, right? There's tools we can use, or just training more of our both sides, training more of the professionals on some best practices for engaging with different age youth and like helping them get better at that or and get more confident at that. But then also opportunities like Jasmine's Project Wet Workshop, right? Where we're training the teachers and helping them get more confidence in the subject matter and learning about those careers. And then once a teacher is confident and passionate about something, like it's going to show up in their classroom in tangible and intangible ways. But those posters, right, that's a great example of a tool that takes this expertise from the professional and puts it in a way that a student can engage with and a student can connect with, regardless of that student's learning need or learning styles or like the type of input that they need. So that's a great example, but also there's other things like that we could come up with or utilize, I think, just to bridge it.
Yeah, I love that. And I know we've seen a huge shift in acceptance of our water education programs, for example, because we're empowering the teachers, right? Before the activity, during the activity, after the activity, so they feel confident enough to continue the discussion. I'm curious too, from an educator's standpoint, right? We talk about empowering the educators. How can the educators empower us? Right? So it's not just the needs, or we can offer a tour, or we can offer an internship. What do we need to know so that we're doing a better job in the efforts that we're already, engaged in, whether that's career fairs or community events. We love our community events, or, we've got programs that don't have to align with state standards. Ours do, not everybody's does, but we're not required to align with state standards. We're just, something we want to do is promote water education. So how can we better connect with students? Because that's not our world either. We love them. We want to. Some of us have kids, some of us don't. But maybe there's some suggestions and tips for us as well. Don.
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, I think that we talk about ESL and the language barrier, and we need to acknowledge that we speak a different language than English in our industry. So when you say to me reservoir or lake or standpipe or elevated tank, or those are all terms for water storage facilities, but they mean very, very different things. And so if you've been in this industry for a long time, you speak this language as your primary language. And we need to take a step back and understand that. I think the other piece to this that makes a difference is that a couple things. One is that if we want to engage younger people and get them into the industry, we need to look at the barriers that we have in our employment system. Because I will tell you from many years of experience, there are very few public water and wastewater agencies that will hire an 18-year-old student who has no work experience. I don't care if they've taken some classes and they have a D2 certification with no experience. We are not a risk taker. And so I think to some degree, we need to create some trainee positions or some entry-level positions where we are willing to be welcoming to people who don't meet all of the traditional criteria and don't jump through all of our regular hoops. So we need to be more welcoming as an industry in our employment thing. I think the last piece of this is that I think for many, many, many years, the water utilities industry did a great job with their school program. And we said we did K-12, but really we did K-6. We did the fourth grade or fifth grade where you went to the water treatment plant and you had a week experience on that. And after that, we disappeared from the scene. Water Education Foundation did some stuff for junior high schools, but there's virtually nothing there for the high schools. And so that's why I think the WEEA brochure has been a great tool as far as opening the door to high school career counselors to say, oh, well, Sally or Susie or Johnny, they want to work with their hands. They want to do something for the environment. They either don't want to or can't go to college. Have you ever thought about being in high school? High school counselors have 400 to 400 students each that they're counseling, and they have their kind of go-to list. Well, if they do this, then I'll guarantee you that being a water treatment plant operator or a wastewater, collection system operator is not on any of those lists unless they know somebody in the industry. So I think that's been a step, but I think it's a continuity of things that we need to be doing. We need to strengthen what we're doing, and the work that Matt's doing at the Innovation Center is a step in the right direction. But I think we need to be doing it as an industry too, and that's developing materials and activities for junior high school students and activities and the stuff for high school students.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm, like I said, some of our school program contractors are on the line, and it was really important for me to have them here, because part of what I want to do is emphasize that career component as part of the lesson, because we can talk about, here's your water supply. This is what it takes to get there. These are our challenges, yet who is solving those challenges? And if we have a real opportunity to say, water treatment operators, distribution operators, scientists, all of these people contribute to the solutions of these problems. And so what we're hoping to do, and again, why our contractors are on the line, is we're hoping to introduce that career component in our entire K-12 system. We've transitioned over COVID to do hands-on learning, not presentations, to do investigative work where students are going outside to find water sources. So if there's an emergency, do you even know where to get water, for example, and designing those solutions? Well, let's take it a step further. Who delivers water to this source? Who would be a responder if the supply went out? What kind of jobs can you see yourself in? And this is why I love Dr. Tessier's cards. If we can develop these cards or these jobs that they can see themselves being that person for the day and acting out that job in these scenarios, maybe we're a little bit closer to having interest, where we already know that awareness is one of our biggest challenges. And according to our poll that we did a few months ago, it's your top priority out of the 4. Thank you for that. Bill.
Yes, I wanted to, because I come from a background of education, trying to figure out ways to connect the community more directly with the water industry. And I was thinking that if an effort was made to reach out to the Parent-Teacher Association, the PTAs, because if you get those folks involved and have them sponsor like a career night once a quarter to begin with, maybe once monthly if it becomes popular, and have the students, especially at the elementary schools, be the ambassadors of the programs and the careers that they have become excited about, that they took home their little badge and going, I'm going to be a water engineer. It's like, have a kid talk to the rest of the other kids and the parents about why they're excited about these opportunities and this future for themselves. I think it would explode.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. Thank you for that.
Can I comment on that?
Please, Nirmala.
Sorry, my cat is in the background, but I don't think many of these parents have the time to bring the kid to school. Many of these low-income parents, single parents, they have several jobs. And I think it's difficult for them to engage them very often. So that's why most of the programs and the way we interact is through the schools, because once the kids go home, some of them are bused. It gets very difficult to engage with the teachers.
Yeah, and this is not so much the teachers as it is with other community members, and it could even be done on the weekend. You know, if the parents are working and don't have time to take their kid to the school, but have them do something once every quarter, something like that. But the more engagement that they can have with industry folks at these career nights, I think it would be wildly popular.
Perfect. I'm gonna call on Dawn, and then Nate, can you help me out? Because I'm having some difficulty seeing the chat. If there's anything in there that we need to know. Dawn.
Yeah, I think one thing that one underlying problem that all of us have is that from a labor market information side, we are invisible. If you look for standard occupation codes, there's one at the federal level that says treatment plant operators, water and wastewater and affiliated. That's the only job classification that's there. And so even though we have heavy equipment operators and rotating equipment mechanics and plant mechanics, none of these show up in the data. And I know where we really find that is when we're looking for military to the water utilities industry. We're not on any of the federal databases, so we are an invisible employer, and that's something that we as an industry need to be working on and chipping away at, is having some labor market information, because when you apply for grants, again, there's no LMI to support the need. So that's a challenge that we have to overcome.
And that is an excellent point. And Dawn knows that when we did our statewide report, this was one of the biggest challenges the COE had, is identifying those codes that they could actually track and provide metrics on. And it took them 15 months just to complete this report, because they did a thorough job. But this was one of the huge challenges that they had to overcome, and it took them many months to figure it out just so we could have the statewide report that gave us some information.
Yeah, like these are Matt's cards.
Yeah.
This is the whole deck. And
Ooh.
and I can tell you, when I show these to industry people, they're saying a 4% decline in water plant operators. We can't hire water plant operators right now. And so the data that's out there in many cases is inaccurate. And like when we look at the size of the water and wastewater industry, because collection systems on the wastewater side are not required to be certified, we can it's a lot easier to look at the water side, where distribution and treatment plant operators are in the labor force, and and we capture that data. But most of the studies that you see done and the LMI that's produced doesn't even look at the wastewater side, the wastewater collection side, just the treatment side. Great
point. Benita.
Thank you. I'm kind of going into question number 2 a little bit, but I agree with Nirmala that many parents are busy and impacted by soccer games on the weekends and work schedules. However, I think it is critical that we do whatever we can to try to engage them and get their input. As Dr. Andrews said, that whether it's PTA, we've got to be creative in how we outreach to them, but we definitely can't not get their input and say, oh, well, we knew you all were busy, so we planned this wonderful program and we're going to drop it into your community. They've got to have buy-in and feel that their values and visions and beliefs about, how they want their children raised are considered important and are part of the planning. And Dr. Tessier did say that we don't want to be the all-knowing industry that's just going to drop this amazing program into the community. It is critical that the community feels that their voices were heard and valued and listened to. So they are busy, but I am a single parent, but I made the time, whether that's my mom babysits, someone else babysits, but we will make the time. It's important to us.
Thank you very much for that, Benita. Nate, you said there were some questions in the chat we needed to address.
Yeah, we actually had a challenge that was posted by Yuri. A challenge with educators is the
Great.
perception of losing instructional time with their students with topics outside of core subjects. So making sure they understand this work can supplement academic instruction in the classroom is important.
Yeah, and Yuri, thank you for that. I really loved the part of the presentation that talked about interdependence, right? And how work, look, we're water and energy. There isn't a thing you can't imagine in your space, even today. Look around your room. This is one of my favorite activities. There isn't anything in this room that wasn't made with water, distributed by water, manufactured, delivered, transported, sold. Water and energy are an integral part of our lives, right? So while we're having this challenge, well, how do we introduce careers, or how do we are so fortunate to be caretakers of these resources, because while our challenges are big, they're also very vast. We have a lot of opportunity because of the resources that we're caring for. So thank you for that, Yuri. I appreciate your comment that teachers are finding it very challenging because of all of the work that they have as well.
We also had a great suggestion from Karen. She
Great.
said that her kids' PTA did a plan. They planned a career day for the school during the school day. So the PTA actually did all the work recruiting and scheduling presenters, and then they showed up, and the teachers didn't have to, volunteer extra time on top of what they already do. The principal supported that, so that's another great way.
That is great, and I think to the point that educators are overwhelmed and overtaxed and overbusy. We also know industry is the same, because we're still treating this effort as another duties as assigned thing. So I encourage all of you to start bringing some of these challenges and some of these opportunities to your leadership as leaders in this space, and asking for an investment. And that investment could be very simply having a person, whoever that may be, responsible for this kind of work, right? Because right now it could be an HR person, it could be a public relations person, it could be, or getting involved in organizations that make this a priority so that we can advance the workforce. One of those could be WEEA, one of those could be AWWA. There are a lot of organizations that we can belong to that can help us advance the work without it being such a challenge, because there's no time and no resources left. And I can tell you, some of the conferences that we've been having lately, they're starting to bring into the fold the discussion about burnout and how we're dealing with it, because we're continuing to have more added on and we don't have room for anything else, right? But we're having those discussions, which means that's important, and it's time for change. Thank you, Nate. Anything else in the chat we need to know about?
Yeah, one just came in from Alicia. She was just talking about if teachers, it would be nice to know if teachers prefer to come to the water agencies or if the water agencies would come to them, and using example of Project WET workshops being held at the school instead of the agency.
That's a great question, great point. If we have any educators on the line, any illumination there, what you prefer or what your challenges are? I see Karen's raised her hand.
I mean, I can say just from working with teachers over the years, and before coming to DD-BAR in July, I was with the Yolo County Office of Education doing college and career readiness. And I think the answer to that question is going to be it varies, right? In some cases, they prefer to get out to come to you. And in some cases to be like, oh my gosh, yes, if you come to my school, that would make it accessible. It's just totally going to depend. And it is really hard to get into, there's such limited time in schools where the districts have professional development hours with the teachers. Like, it's so limited, or it can be so limited, that it's really hard to push into those.
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean it's impossible, and it doesn't mean there's not a possibility somewhere, right? I think it just is talking to the principals, talking to the district coordinators, finding out what's possible.
Yeah,
And
I
talking
love
to the
that.
teachers to find out what works for them so that then you have that backup information.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, I've been asked to do a presentation on the work that we do together to a statewide group of communicators because they're interested in workforce development. So how can we tap into that resource to say, hey, we need to make these jobs visible. We need to make it clear that we're working on this, so that maybe that would also spur some conversations on the outside, right? Students are now paying attention, educators are now paying attention, industry is now paying attention, and making that a priority. It could be an opportunity.
Can I
Okay,
jump in really quickly?
please.
Karen, I really appreciate that. And I would concur 100%. One of the things that I will share also for industry to know is a lot of times teachers do want to get out of their schools or classrooms, but then you've got transportation costs incurred. So and it's very simple. A bus ride for a student or class might be $350, $400. So a lot of times if water industry or any partners will provide, hey, I got the transportation cost for you covered, that really does help, because believe it or not, school funds are very limited and transportation chews up a lot of that budget. But I also want to offer one thing that I will tell you it was like a fulcrum moment where a group of teachers were like, oh my gosh, we were able to take a group of innovative teachers who wanted to start this process, right? So you're enlisting who wants to innovate and do something differently, get the principal support, get the teachers to do it. I want to say it was a group of 7 or 8 teachers. We actually took them to the Sweetwater Authority dam. Maybe I'm not saying that correctly, so please don't laugh at me. But they went to the dam and they started learning about, oh my gosh, a lot of educators have literally spent their entire life in education. So going out and seeing like the real world environment is an incredibly powerful experience for teachers. What I experienced was the teachers like, oh my gosh, I get it. Okay, this is so cool. And then you kind of hook them into, this is why we got to get kids out, because I didn't even know this existed and I'm not providing that for kids. And then they want to partner more to provide that experience. So I would argue it's also really important for teachers, take the kids off the table first, but get teachers out in that environment. And as Karen said, that can be done with planning, because there are contractual obligations where you don't have a lot of time, but you can be strategic on who you work with.
Yeah, I love that. I was seeing if Benita is still on the call. Just thinking to that point, right? Metropolitan has what they call inspection trips or tours to state facilities, Colorado River, Northern California facilities, and they have a tour that's designed specifically for educators. And when we do those tours, we see the light at the end of the tour. Like they're like, what can I do now? And I'm talking about everybody, not just teachers, because we've had teachers, but we also have elected officials. We invite the grand jury, because these are influencers, and teachers can influence our young people and can provide guidance and direction. So if you're on the line and you have tours to your facilities, maybe consider inviting a group of teachers as part of that and introducing them into our world so it becomes real. Because it seems kind of obscure, like we're the water people and or energy people, and if you turn on the lights and they come on at the tap and the water comes on. It's very hard to grasp until you can see the massive infrastructure that supports the whole thing and the people who are behind it. It's a great point. Okay, with 10 minutes left, because I know we can do that. How do we maximize community engagement in fostering career awareness? So if we're creating a list, who should be on that list? If we're looking at potential partners, we know educators, we know innovation centers. For the folks who are on the line with Orange County, we're also talking alongside Linda Vista Innovation Center with the Tiger Woods Foundation here in Orange County. Tiger Woods is also looking to expand into Los Angeles and beyond. So there's an opportunity there. Who else do we want to add to this list?
PTA.
PTA, thank you for that. Yeah, you can just shout them out.
Yep.
We have a comment from both Karen and Yurib about expanded learning, so after school
Perfect.
opportunities.
Love it. Who else should we be talking to? How can we build our networks?
Tiffany, Melita,
Melita.
how you doing? You might want to consider some vendors. I mean, they have a lot of software things. I mean, equipment. They'll do cutaways. That's more hands-on demonstration. Those are resources that you can tap into for educating our young K through 12 students as well too.
I love it. Who else?
I'd say community college and teacher prep programs. Get them while they're getting started.
I love that. Wonderful. Who else? Think about your community and your networks as a parent. Who else would you consider to be in this space? Or think about your networks, your professional networks.
Hi, Tiffany. This is Jasmine. I used to engage highly with a group called the Hispanic Access Foundation, and they had a whole wing or a whole arm, a branch of staff that would work with religious community groups. And that was something that is very important to different types of cultures and communities. And so that's something that could be considered. Different churches, gardens, things like that.
Perfect. Perfect. I love that. And
Chamber
there
of
isn't anybody who isn't excited about helping kids. Bill, sorry.
Maybe Chamber of Commerce and some of the
Yes.
community service groups like Kiwanis or Rotary, all those kind of folks, because some of them may be in those job career areas and would be willing to collaborate with the local PTAs and other school-based organizations.
Wonderful. Who else? And I'm challenging you to think outside of your box. What about, for example, Nirmala's work with the National Society of Black Engineers? Or Latinos for Water? Or
Also
our,
have comments.
yeah,
I'm sorry, comments for
Please.
homeschool groups, STEM, philanthropic organizations, outdoor environmental education learning, like SD Native Plant Society, SD Bird Alliance.
yeah, all great. Yeah, our outdoor education partners. Yeah, outdoor environmental groups, perfect. Perfect. So thinking about these groups and our discussion today with the last few minutes that we have, how can we better support their efforts to have it be important to them to introduce career exploration into their work? What might we be able to do? In this leadership class, for example, our instructor was saying you can use authentic appreciation. So I really appreciate, but you can't use it just because you want something. So I think part of this is going to be about relationship building, starting those relationships and taking an active interest in their work instead of just telling them this is what we need, as an example. Bill.
One thing that our foundation has done in the last few years is to start providing awards, monetary awards for excellence in environmental education. And we are getting nominations from around the state from an outstanding student, teacher, and administrator. And we're going to add other categories soon. But we're providing like, $500, checks in the mail to say, good job, you're doing an outstanding job. And then we're putting that on our website. So we're advertising and spotlighting great work that's being done in various school districts around the state and in the classrooms.
Excellent. Excellent. Another example, we just had one of our board members attend a chamber event as the keynote. So they had a need to be filled. And then we have a forum. So we can talk about not just our work and not just our work together, but also why it's important to collaborate for the future and our future generations, and how our work together supports that. Any other thoughts about how we can better support these groups that we're hoping to fold in as partners in our communities, how we can support their efforts? Anything in the chat, Nate?
Just a question as to who is Bill Andrews with?
Bill Andrews is with the California Environmental Education Foundation. And Bill Andrews was the educator, and I call him every time I do a presentation and people ask, the enthusiastic, tenacious educator who is the founder of WEEA. This was his idea. And we were able to learn from him very early on and start organizing and mobilizing early on. And he's continued to join as a trusted advisor and longtime partner and friend.
I'm going on 50 years in education. I've earned my gray hair. And as Matt brought out in his presentation, you can't do anything in isolation. Everything has to be done through collaboration, and that's the key to success, I think, is inviting others to bring their passion to the table and to serve kids, teachers, and the environment. That's our focus for the foundation.
Wonderful. Bill's group also does teacher training, and they have an upcoming teacher training generally in January, February?
Generally, yeah, in 2025, we may be starting a little later this year, but we are planning to move ahead with another one. Maybe we'll start doing some teacher training in content in the summer, and doing implementation of the stewardship projects with teachers and kids in the fall to try to use a little different model based on feedback we've gotten from the teachers. But we've been doing it from 2011, and we've done 13 out of 15 teacher institutes, and have also had external evaluators make sure that we're giving state-of-the-art premium quality work, and those reports are on our website.
Yeah, we love your teacher training. It's an opportunity for us to sponsor the great work. And then there's CEF also offers a chance for industry or sponsors to come and provide a little context about what it is that they do and what we're hoping to achieve together. So it's a great organization doing great work.
And we did a CTE panel this year in the spring in 2024, and that was really effective. And multiple people on this phone call are sponsors of the Institute. So our thanks and gratitude to all the water agencies and of course LADWP, which does water and power. But yeah, some great sponsors that have really helped us continue to actually, honor the efforts that teachers are making and providing them with stipends for participating.
Yeah, great. We're going to end here. Again, everyone's going to get copies of all of the things. And we hope that, it's a lot of information. It always is. A lot of ideas come out of these meetings, and you'll continue to think of these things throughout the course of the week, your weekend, please reach out if you have questions, or if you have an aha moment, or if there's some problem that you think is significant and we can try to work together to solve it. Please reach out to our speaker, Dr. Tessier, and thank you again for joining us, because that offer to come visit his shop is so valuable. If you thought you were, inspired by his presentation, going to see the kids in action and the work that he and his team are doing, it's monumental and it's really inspiring. So I encourage you to do that. Our next WEEA Leadership Roundtable, number 20. We're at number 20. Don Jones has agreed to be our speaker at our next leadership roundtable meeting. And I kind of begged him a little bit because Don is retiring. Don is a mentor to almost everybody I speak to who's working in this space, or a person of inspiration and interest. We're all trying to get as much as we can from his decades of experience in water, in education, because he's also and has been an educator at WEEA College. He has formed programs for transitioning military to water and others and other careers in energy. He has implemented women in water in San Diego. Don is a wealth of knowledge, and it makes me a little nervous that he's going to retire, you know, at the end of this, I'm going to say fiscal year, because many of us know that that's like June, July. So please join us and we'll send out a formal invitation. Don, do you have a date, one of those Tuesdays that you prefer? Or do we want to tell people later?
Actually, I can do January 28th if you want, or we can do it the Tuesday, any of the Tuesdays in February. So we'll kind of work on that as moving forward.
Great, great. So we're looking the end of January, February. I'm open each of those days. We'll work with Don to get that date nailed down, but you don't want to miss this. This is our opportunity as he's exiting to gather as much information, knowledge, his tips, his in areas of success that we can grow upon. So please join us for that. I'm going to give a shout out to our WEEA sponsors, as I always do. If you are interested in sponsoring WEEA, we dropped the sponsorship brochure in the chat. Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, Eastern Municipal Water District, Tomorrow's Talent, Water Replenishment District, brand new sponsor, Molten Miguel Water District, Western Municipal Water District, and then our in-kind sponsors. Nobody's disappointed that they're sponsoring WEEA. And the more I'm telling you, as I'm talking to leaders and asking them to invest, they're asking me, well, who else is investing? So if we're showing them, and we've got several levels of sponsorship as little as $1,000. If we're showing them that we care about this work and we're investing in this work, they're going to make a path forward to have somebody who is dedicated to this work. And it won't be and other duties as assigned. So I want you to consider that. Please share with your networks. And thank you so much for continuing to show up and having this conversation, being very, very honest and open and sharing your expertise and your knowledge and your thoughts. I am very grateful to be part of this collaboration, and look forward to seeing you next time.